All right, people. All right. Let me just, as always, I have to first and foremost do a sound check. All right. So let me just see. All right. We've got straight away M. Wilkinson from Morocco. Kya baat hai, yaar, kya baat hai. What is going on? Firstly, let me just do a sound check. I need to see that. Let me just check this is being heard loud and clear. Okay, so, and I'll also pull out whilst we're waiting the chat separately for YouTube. Right, so sometimes there's a lag, and that way I'll have that separate. Okay. Let me just enlarge this. Take this back down. All right. So here we are, people. Here we are. Right. So can you all salam, Mufti? You use sound is perfect. Shukran Ayub. I appreciate that. That's what I was waiting for. Someone to tell me the sound is good. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا Huanying, Layth, bienvenidos a todos. Bakhair Ragle, Sasriakal, Khushamadid, Kemcho, and as always, people, Swagatam, Swagatam. So, what is going on? Why is this so late? That is a good question. That is a good question. Well, my response to that is it's early somewhere. I'm an international person. Yeah, so what is going on? We've got quite a few things to take a look at today. I'll just bring some up here and just show you on the slide. Right, so we're going to take a look at the concept of Tawakkul from the Quran. I think that's incredibly important. In line with that, I thought it'd be good to share a story of an incredible personality, historic Islamic personality, Abdul Rahman ibn Muawiya, also known as al-Dākhil. Right, so then I'd been asked a question by various people over the past, I don't know, few months now. And somebody asked it again recently about, does God hate the pig? So I thought, yeah, it's about time I kind of tackle this question for some people if it can help them, and maybe it can kind of give them a greater connection. Right. So following that, so we're going to take a look at that topic as well. And then I'll take your questions, and then a bit of meet and greet as always. As always, people. So and then we'll call it a night. Where is the Bengali welcome? What is the Bengali welcome? I need to do that as well. Right, so what is going on? Daniel, you're doing it. Team Intense Fitness, you're doing it. You're Lonzetta, Layla. All right, so people, what is going? Somebody wrote the Bengali welcome in Bengali, but I won't be able to read that. So they said, oh, here it is. Let's bring it up, man. Bring it up on the screen. Bala Soni. Bala Soni. Bala. All right, so people. Now, what else before we begin? Anything to kind of whet the appetite. Had to have iced coffee. You know, there's a bit of a heat wave going on in the UK. No problem, man. No problema. No problema. No hay de qué. Hope that's not a troll cuss word. Right, shukran. Right, somebody said, can they ask a question? Chalo, yaar, pooch lo. Ask. Right. Was there anything on my mind before I jump into this topic as well? Let me just check my notes. Sometimes I make some notes. Oh, I'd like to, whilst we're beginning, make a dua for Ustadh Usama Canon, who's passed away. May, after battling with ALS, may Allah bless his afterlife, grant him an elevated maqam in Jannatul Firdaus, and grant his family ease. Yeah. You know, right. I've seen a lot of posts. I didn't make a post about Ustadh Usama Canon. I mean, I didn't feel the need to do so. I thought, well, I think everybody pretty much knows. And yeah. But I want to say that I saw a lot of very nice posts about him, which is brilliant and much needed. But at the same time, it kind of it disappointed me. You see, Ustadh Usama Canon, if we're going to be honest, was betrayed by his own community, by the imams, by the clerics, by the industry, and he was just left out, you know, hung to dry. He was just kind of like just left there, really, just to bleed out, metaphorically. And I'm not saying about right or wrong. I actually did speak out about his case previously and spoke out about the kind of outcries that people were making against him. And I did state, as always, that, look, this trial by media is just this, it's nothing but pantomime. Okay. And unfortunately, we have a generation of social media narcissists who are just this generation, me. And you can't really pander to these people. If there's ever issues that are criminal, people should pursue them through the legal routes. If there's other things, people should, but they should. It just seeing all these nice words that people were now saying about him, that he passed away. And when he was defenseless and people were attacking him left, right, and center, and his own creation, ta'lif, was snatched away from him, from what I'm aware of, Allahu A'lam, but he was removed, and this is something he created. And people profited of him, and he was in a debilitating, disabled state. And yet no imam I'm not aware of really spoke out in any kind of defense even for him. Not even a nice word, you know, because it was too dangerous for their own credibility. It was too, it would bring too much heat, and it's not worth the fight. But now that he passes, it's nice to say something nice. You always come out as another good guy, and it's disenchanting, isn't it? It's disenchanting. I saw it, and a lot of people, and it's nice that these things are being said, and may Allah bless his afterlife. But we as a community are really just a shambles, ain't we? As a Muslim community, this is why, I don't, these are my thoughts. Saying them as I feel them. I've always, been someone that I will just speak my mind. If I want to say something, I'll say it. And yeah, that's, excuse that, that's there's a poem, actually, it'll be quite relevant. It is the poet says, Umar choti hai to kya, zindagi ka har ek manzar dekha hai, फरेबी मुस्कुराहट देखी है, बगल में खंजर देखा है. He says, if I'm not, even if I'm young, so what? He says, I've seen all phases of life, the landscape of life, I've seen it. He says, I've seen the deceptive smiles of people, and I've seen the hidden daggers that people carry. But yeah, may Allah bless him. I don't know. It was, I thought, chalo, let's say it. It may upset some people, but nothing new there. Oh, Mahmoud Abdul Baqi, shukran for the super chat. Much love, dearly appreciate it. Yep. So, all right, we've got Shalom. Jesus is the only way to the Father. If Jesus was the only way to the Father, then who was Jesus's way to the Father? That's a good question, isn't it? Yeah. Now, I love Jesus. Somebody said, are you calling the Messiah a liar? Well, a'yadhu billah. We love Jesus. Muslims love Jesus. Right. So, let's move into some of these topics that we want to take a look at. And so then we can come back to your questions. Those of you that have just tuned in, click like, click share, people. You know the drill. Spread the love, man. Spread the love, people. Spread the love. See, that's always, the two things, if I could say, that, or if I was to add it into three, cello three, let's do three, huh? One is to always have some backbone to you. And two, to be full of laughter. And three, to spread love. See, those things in and of themselves will be emblematic of your faith. Right, so the Injil is what I stand on. All right, I appreciate that. That's good. The Injil is, yeah, okay, let's begin, people. So what I wanted to do was take a look at how the Quran highlights tawakkul, trust, reliance on God. The subtopic, I thought I've introduced him before, but I thought it's relevant to mention the story again. Abdul Rahman al-Dākhil, and does God detest the pig? Does God hate the pig? As absurd or as wild as a question as that may seem, many people ask it, and I think in many ways it's a good question, and we'll get to that. But let's begin first of all with before anything, if you haven't watched my Mind Trap, which it was actually episode 59, I've got to correct that. It was with Dr. Muqtadar Khan. We discussed Ibn Arabi, Ijtihad, and Ihsan, amongst many other things. I really enjoyed discussing, speaking, and just really engaging with Ustadh Dr. Muqtadar Khan. Really a pleasant personality. So if you haven't checked that out, after this show, of course, do check it out. Spread the love, man. Spread the love. So, all right, let's let the slide move on. And whilst that's happening, I'll get my... Right. So, let's begin with Tawakkul. A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim, people. I want us to take a look at a few verses today, just 2 or 3 verses on Tawakkul. And I thought this was incredibly important. We began there with the top verse being Surah Ibrahim, I believe. Yes, it is Surah Ibrahim. And we've got there verse 12 that وَمَا لَنَا أَلَّا نَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَقَدْ هَدَانَا سُبُلَنَا. Now, I thought let's begin with that verse, that why should we not rely on God? Why should we not do that? Put our trust in God. وَقَدْ هَدَانَا سُبُلَنَا وَلَنَصْبِرَنَّ, and we will certainly endure or be patient عَلَى مَا آذَيْتُمُونَا, on whatever harm that you, whoever the you is, afflicts us. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ. Those who are to rely, let them rely on God. Let's take a look at the second verse. Now, this is really important as well, and I'm going to come back to just why I think this was a really touching topic for today. This is from Surah Al-Talaq, and you've got verse 3. And just before the ending of verse 2, which is not on there, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Whosoever is mindful of God, you have that taqwa, Allah will always have a way for them. يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. And by here by way, I mean like an exit, to get out of any struggle or challenge or problem that they may be stuck in. Then the following verse says وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. Note that they've got a sukoon, a jazm. Yarzuq. It's not yarzuqu, it's yarzuq. Okay. Why? Because it's the reply to a condition. So وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ, whosoever is mindful, this will happen. They call it jumla shartiya. So it's a conditional sentence. If you do this, whosoever does this, then this happens. So من حيث لا يحتسب ومن يتوكل على الله فهو حسبه. And whosoever relies on God, Allah is sufficient for him. إن الله بالغ أمري. Allah will surely see to his affair. وَقَدْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدْرًا. And Allah has set a destiny or a decree with every matter. Now, let me just see, did I have another verse here on the same topic? And then I just wanted to highlight and explain this, because so often people, let me just see first. Yes, and this was one we covered before from Al Imran or Surah Al Imran. And people often say Ali Imran, and that's correct. You can read it with the kasra because the word surah is missing. Surah Al Imran. That فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَوَكِّلِينَ. If you've decided on a matter, then have reliance and trust. Right, let's bring those 3 verses in. And there's several others. So there's about, I think, 37 places in the Quran that this word tawakkul is used. Okay. Now, this is one of the most important messages that you can take away. No matter what struggle you are going through in life, it comes back to your trust, your reliance. Most of the verses to do with tawakkul, here, the one I shared here said, فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ, that those who are going to rely, but most of them say, فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, those who have faith, let them rely. Believe me that the power of reliance, it is no short than, it is something that you can move mountains with. This, take any incident in your life, and this is why I brought that verse first. وَقَدْ هَدَانَا سُبُلَنَا. Why? Because take any incident that has happened to you in your life in the past. Any. You've got through it. In that verse, we are being reminded, وَمَا لَنَا أَلَّا نَتَوَكَّلَ. Why should we not rely? Why shouldn't we have tawakkul? I've got this problem going on. I've got this calamity. I've got this. Why should... And have we not had problems in the past? وَقَدْ هَدَانَا سُبُلَنَا. Yet we made it through. Always just, you will have some frame of reference, and the problem, the challenge may be new. But one of the core fruits of faith is tawakkul, having that trust. But once you have trust, what do you do? What do? You leap. You have to take that step. Just having tawakkul, that's great, but that's the first part. So the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that اعقلها فتوكل. Have tawakkul, but then tie the camel. Because the person had a camel and he came and he was going somewhere, and the Prophet asked him, are you not going to tie it? And he said, I have tawakkul. The Prophet said, that's excellent. Have tawakkul, but tie the camel and then have tawakkul. You see, you have to then strategize. You have to then leap. And one of the most amazing places, now think about this. The second verse I shared with you, second verse I shared with you is in Surah Al-Talaq. Now just think about that. This is one of the greatest challenges for people, even in modern society. It's relationships. And tearing away from someone in any form of a relationship. This is obviously spousal, but it could be parental, child, it could be a business relationship, it could be... There is always the fear of rizq. That, damn, I'm going to be worse off. What am I going to do about that money that I depended on? Where am I going to get that from? Especially in divorces. So many people cling onto a relationship and that is toxic. And unfortunately, most of these people being women, they will cling and hold on to a very toxic, abusive relationship out of fear that how will I sustain myself? Where will I? And this is where in Surah Al-Talaq, that second verse, you can see this from Surah Talaq, verse 3. وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. That Allah will provide them rizq from where they can't even imagine. But you have to take that leap in life, whatever it is, whether that particular verse is about talaq, but the others are not about talaq. They're talking about life, struggle, where alama azaytumuna, we are enduring this affliction, whatever the affliction may be. Illness, health, wealth, properties, families, natural disasters, any form of crises, you have that tawakkul. The other most important thing here is linked to the strategizing is when you leap forward to actually achieve. But nothing is going to just land from the sky, nothing. And one, I've shared this before, one of the greatest lessons you get from where Allah speaks about Maryam alayhi salam, that when she's following labor, when she's heavily pregnant, then gives birth, and she's hungry. She's on her own, she's isolated, and she needs food, and she's at this palm tree. But what is the commandment? Huzzi ilayki bi jad'in nakhla. Shake the tree. Tusaqit alayki rutaban janiya. The fruits shall land. Allah could have said, no, just make dua and this will happen. No, you have to do it. You have to take the steps, but with a sense of reliance. Shake the tree and the fruits come down. So that's to someone like Maryam alayhi salam, who is at the very least a mother of the prophet, a great prophet in Islam, Jesus, Isa alayhi salam. And according to many people, she herself is a prophetess in Islam. So that is one of the most, no matter, every single one of us at the end of the day is going to be facing some difficulty in life. Do not forget this. Okay. Allah will treat you as you expect of him. Man yatawakkal ala Allah. Whosoever does this, then Allah has got them. But if you don't expect that, if you don't have that trust, and you think, Allah doesn't really, he's not going to listen to me, I'm too much of a sinner, I'm too much of a this, then that's how Allah is going to treat you. So these verses, people, no matter what setback you face in life, grasp, have your tawakkul, but strategize. And then at times you have to we don't know the future. We can't, sometimes you got to take a risk. Karna padta hai, and so be it. And if you got to step back, you step back, then you leap forward. Okay. So I wanted to share that as a reminder. And then I thought, look, speaking of calamities, speaking of tragedies that befall people, there's nothing quite like taking an ibrah, taking a moral from a story. So a great example to cite here, in line with tawakkul, in line with calamities, in line with disasters, and something I've shared often before, and I always think is a great story to share, is Abdul Rahman ibn Muawiya al-Dākhil. People, if you think calamities, have afflicted you in your life, and they may have, and they don't discriminate. However, here, check this out. Imagine being royalty. Here is an individual, Abdul Rahman ibn Muawiyah. Who is he, by the way? He is a prince. We're talking about a century after the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's a prince from the many princes of Bani Umayyad, the Umayyad dynasty, which is in its decline. And he's living life. He's chilling. He's got it all. Wealth, dunya, women. He's got it all. Family, he's one of many princes living in Damascus. What happens all of a sudden is he comes out one day and whoa, he sees these black flags. ISIS? Perhaps not too different, actually, at that point. It was Bani al-Abbas, the Abbasids. The Abbasids had done a coup, military coup. they're taken over, and what they were doing was they were hunting out, seeking out and hunting every Umayyad, every person, royal elite linked to Bani Umayyah, and they were laying him or her, not so much her, but more so him, to death. They were wiping out the entire patrilineal lineage. It was all going down. Any person that was a part of the royal family was going to be exterminated. And who is he? So those of you that know a bit about history, his name is Abdul Rahman ibn Muawiya ibn Hisham ibn Abdul Malik. So his granddad Hisham is one of the major last caliphs of Bani Umayyah, and his dad wasn't a caliph, and he's the grandson, and he's just basically living life. So he sees this, oh my God, what's going on? Yeah, him and his brother, and they're like, let's get out of here. And he has a baby. He's actually, when he sees this, his baby was crying, and he decides to walk. Let's pacify the baby. So he's taking the baby out, walking, pacifying the child, and he sees these people coming, these army soldiers of the Abbasid soldiers hunting out Umayyads. He sees the flags, he runs in, he hides, he gives the child to the mother, he grabs anything he can get hold of. Him and his brother, he has a younger brother, they are gone. Out of there. They go running. People are being massacred. There was a bloodbath that was taking place. It is some of the soldiers see him and they say, oh, that's one of the princes. Catch him. So they are on their chase. These guys are running. They reach the Euphrates, throw themselves in. Chalo arya par. There's death and there's death. So they throw themselves in. And right, that's my my private jets. Right, so the soldiers, and check this out, the soldiers are like, damn, because they're too scared. The current is too powerful. He's a good swimmer. He makes it across. His younger brother, early teens, he's struggling a bit in the river, in the Euphrates. So the soldiers cut him a deal. They say, you know what? Come back. We'll relax, relájate, cálmate, do you think we're gonna hurt you? This is a game, man. We're playing the game. So they say to him, you know what? Come back. We're not going to kill you. We're just going to, we give you our word. Yellow yar. Have the word, man. In the beginning, there was the word. And here's my word. He's given it. So his brother, whose name was Walid, he thinks, you know what? I'm going to come back. And he tells his bro, no, don't. But he goes back. As soon as he gets out of the river, in front of him, whilst he's on the other side of the bank, the river bank, they hold his younger brother, who is probably about 13, and they slit his throat. Right in front of him. And this is what he gets to experience. He runs. He runs as fast as his legs can carry him. He says that if I could, I would have taken flight. Ye bhi ho sakta tha. Aviation, huh? So he runs and he just traveled, and there's all these journeys of him trying to get out of there. He heads down south. He's just non-stop traveling. In his mind, he thinks, where do I go? So because he's trying to keep a low profile, obviously Umayyad prince, huge price on his head. So he makes his way down towards the Arabian Peninsula, over into Egypt, and then he finds more hostile territory. And he had some relatives deep down in Libya, further down in Africa. So he heads over to there because he was partially Berber. His mum's side were Berber. So he heads there and he seeks sanctuary. So he's kind of hiding. He's in hiding there. And he just stays there. Now think about this. He's lost everything overnight. He lost royalty, luxury, family, child, wife, brother. He lost money, legacy. Everything has gone. The whole kingdom has gone. So he's living almost an impoverished life with certain Berbers in Libya. Now, he keeps himself to himself. He starts trying to, but then check this out. You see, you have the tawakkul, but then you have a strategy. So he thinks after a while, when he collects his senses, you know what? I wonder if there's any other Bani Umayyah alive or sympathizers. So he starts writing letters to certain people. Obviously, he didn't have social media, man. Couldn't just do a live stream. So, so he starts writing out to different people, trying to test the waters, see what's going on. And time goes by. And he realizes he has some sympathizers. He has sympathizers in Yemen. He has sympathizers in some in the Arabian Peninsula, some in Egypt, but not many. And he's thinking, yeah, it's been years now. I've been living in Libya like a pauper. What do I do? Shall I go to Egypt? Shall I go to Arabian Peninsula? Should I go? And then he's like, too dangerous. And he's got this servant with him. And the servant's kind of advising, very wise person, telling him, look, don't be silly, man. So eventually what happens, and I can't go into the full detail, but there was a power vacuum taking place in Andalus, Muslim Spain. The Bani Umayyah had lost their control before the massacres, a year before, and there was just a void. There was a power struggle. Random people were trying to take over. Somebody says to him, why don't you head over to Al-Andalus? And he says, whoa, Andalus? Yeah, what this one, man? And so they say to him, look, there is a struggle due to certain discriminatory and racist factors in Al-Andalus. The Arabs and the Berbers were at odds with each other. So because you have Berber ties and you are Bani Umayyah, the legacy. So what if you write to them and ask them, would they support you? So he starts this strategy. And he starts writing and he starts getting some positive feedback. And then he thinks, okay, this is, people are saying, yeah, come over, we'll support you. So he sends his servant to kind of like test the waters, everything's cool. And then he goes on his own, single-handed, nothing, no cavalry, nothing, no backup, just on his own, him and his assistant. That's it. What follows is he lands at this place called Munyakar. Actually, I may have I'll try and bring up here, actually. I may have so this is Al-Munyakar, which is in South Spain, not too far from Malaga. And that's actually a statue of him, because this is where he lands. And when he gets there, he's very intelligent, incredibly astute. He connects. He's very courteous. He's very charming, has an incredibly charming personality. And as you can imagine, there's an ensuing battle that takes place, and he is actually successful. His little group of people, they are successful, triumphant in that battle, and he shows clemency as well. Now, this is interesting. You see, he has a strategy. He has character, because that is important. And there's a point when he overcomes the other people that some of the people with him want to massacre them. And he says, no, don't. He says, you should always show clemency, kindness, and compassion. And he says that it will come back to help us on a rainy day. Allah, and it does in the future. But here he is, and he goes on to set up, he's known as al-Dākhil, because he enters Al-Andalus again. And he establishes, sets into motion an entire empire that will change the course of not only Islamic but human history. The civilization that he sets into motion by setting up this empire. Bani Umayyah in Al-Andalus were one of the most opulent and flourishing kingdoms on earth, that centuries down the line, a few centuries, his own offspring, his great-great-great-great-grandson, will go on to declare himself the caliph of the entire Muslim world, Abdul Rahman III al-Nasir. And in his time, Europe was beholden to his grace, and he was very gracious, and it is a time of immense prosperity for Muslim Spain. Now, hold that thought. Go back to where I was telling you in the beginning how this starts. These Abbasids who have come in, and Abbasids later on go on to become, they have a huge legacy as well. But in the early days, they were very brutal as well. Like many people, it's always the brutality first. So in the early days, they were, very just massacring people and killing people, and they made certain attempts to have Abdul Rahman al-Dākhil assassinated in Muslim Spain, but it was unsuccessful. And on this one occasion, you've all heard of Abu Ja'far al-Mansur. He is the great caliph who was the contemporary of Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik and all these, this one who punished Abu Hanifa, put him in prison, and arguably killed him, or at least contributed to the death of Imam Abu Hanifa. But he is infamously well known, Abu Ja'far al-Mansur. Once Abu Ja'far al-Mansur is sitting, chilling in his palace, and he randomly says, I got one for you. I got a question. Who is the falcon of Quraysh? The falcon, man, the falcon. So they say, obviously, up. Sycophants, isn't it? He says, no, don't be silly, man. He says, seriously, who is the falcon? So they say, so they start guessing all these people, beginning from the great Khulafa, Abu Bakr radiallahu an, right down, all of them. He says, no. He says, they're great, but no. Say, who, yar? Who, man? He says, Abdul Rahman ibn Muawiya. And they said, why Abdul Rahman ibn Muawiyah? He says, this man, kharaja bi nafsihi, that he left here on his own. Mustashiban li ra'yihi. All he had was his own kind of opinion, his belief. That's all he had. And he left. He said, Ya'burul Kaffir. He had to cross a desert. Yarkabul Bahr. He had to ride the sea. Hatta yadkhula baladan a'jamiyan. He entered a non-Arab foreign land. Non-Arabic speaking. Entered a land like that, a different continent. He says, Fajannad al-Ajnad. He says he amassed an army. Not just any army. At his death, he stood with an army of 100,000 strong. And he entered single-handedly. He says, Jannad al-Ajnad. He set up, amassed an army. وَمَصَّرَ الْأَمْصَارِ. He set up, and he says he created cities. وَأَقَامَ مُلْكًا بَعْدَ انْقِطَاعِ. He said he set into motion again an empire that had long deceased. Bani Umayyah, they had deceased in the east. Abbasids had killed them. He set that into motion again, which was yet to last for at least 2 to 3 centuries to come and be one of the most powerful kingdoms on earth in its time. And he says, فقط only لحسن تدبيري, because of his strategizing, وشدة عزمي, and his sheer determination, his reliance. He was a person that when you think of it, he was on the brink of death. A dosa, somebody who he didn't have any talents in Damascus. He was just one of many royal spoiled brats that was just living life lavishly, just like a child man, basically, a man-child. But when he was put under testing times, he rose. He had tawakkul. He had reliance. He went on to shape the course of Islamic history to come. Allah. There are so many examples that we have in our history where when you see what these people, the inspiration really, it rocks your world. Like you think, wow, somebody so close to an NDE, near-death experience, going on to become a major figure that sets an empire, recreates an entire empire, not just any, one of the most powerful to come on earth for centuries. And that is, وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ, you see, فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Whosoever relies on God, God is sufficient for them. So that is something, people, that we can all take lessons from. And obviously there's many other stories in there I had to leave out. There's always, with royalty and all these things, there was always betrayal and these stories, huh? What's that? He says, मैं साजिशों में घेरा एक यतीम शहजादा, कोई छुपा हुआ खंजर मेरी तलाश में. He says, I am an orphan prince surrounded by conspiracies. There is a hidden dagger somewhere seeking me out. Allahu Akbar, people. So, right, let's take a look at, right, somebody said, what happened to his wife and child that he lost? I think, unfortunately, they may have been killed or displaced at the very least. I think the child may have been killed because they would have sought out the bloodline, especially male. They may have spared the wife because she probably wasn't royalty, but they would have killed the child. I mean, he probably put the child in the hope that they can't catch the child because they don't know, because it's only a baby. How do they know whose baby it is? But we don't really hear of the child. Allahu A'lam. But yeah, but great tests and trials. Just goes to show people, sometimes in life, even if you take a few steps back, use that to leap forward. That's how it should be. Right, so let's take a few of your questions. Somebody said you will look like the Asian Anton. I don't know. I don't know who that is. We don't respect the leaders who strive for power more than those who don't. Right. No, I don't think Imam Malik's statement really fits here. Abdul Rahman al-Dākhil is from the lifetime of Imam Malik. But oh yes, I take. Oh, you're referring to the Abbasids. Yes, when Imam Malik was asked about the Abbasids, that is it good? Are they a good force? Are they a force for good? He said, he just said no comment. Right, so let's take a look at some questions that you guys may have. Then we'll take a look at the other topic. Yeah, that's history. But history is amazing to learn. Those of you just tuning in, people, spread the love, man. Spread it, man. Don't know what kind of question that is. Did he change his ways afterwards? Well, I mean, it depends what that means. He was very gracious, and he's. I mean, that's his statue that you saw. I'll bring it back up. This was his statue. It's still there in modern Spain. I mean, it wasn't obviously made. I don't think it was made around his time, but it has been there for quite some while, and that's to commemorate him because he really did. He defined history. He's one of those people. Right. Do you know? Right. Nope. No interesting questions there. So the name Muhammad. Somebody's asking a question. Do you know the name? Do you know the origins? The origin of the name Muhammad? I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Do you mean, was anybody ever named Muhammad before the Prophet? I've heard people say they weren't. Allahu A'lam. I honestly don't know. I've read that people have said that the Prophet, his name, prior to him, people didn't used to have that name. But if they did, it doesn't make a difference. Just if somebody had the name Muhammad before the Prophet, there's nothing wrong. It's a absolutely beautiful name. So it just means the one that's praised. And so, yeah. Right. Shukran. Somebody said, look, nice haircut, yeah. Shukran. You have to, you end up becoming, people might confuse you for Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Okay, so, right, let me just see what is going on. I'll share the link a little later on. I'll do the other topic on pork, and then we'll move to taking some more questions. Let me just, whilst I'm doing this, share the feed, man. Right, and let me just take a sip of water. Can I ask you a personal question? No. No, you can't. There you go. Simple as that. Right now. Right. Okay. So let's begin with the next topic, and we can move on and see if we can wrap things up. That's it's always good to it's always good to rest as well. But Abhi, chalo, there's some time yet. So let me bring this up. So what we're looking at here is okay here. This is the verse. There are a number of verses in the Quran that speak about khinzir, this topic of pig. So what I want us to do is take a look at this verse, and then we'll go into some of the Islamic discussion surrounding it, and then the kind of teleological analysis of why, the kind of maqasid and development of this ruling. So let's begin with this verse that you can see here in Surah Al-An'am, verse 145. This is actually an amazing verse, by the way, of the Quran, and I'll discuss it in more detail on another occasion. This verse, as Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi says, the great Maliki legend, is the basis of all dietary law, because in this verse it states that nothing is haram except this. So this is why, according to the school of Medina, the Maliki madhab, that no animal is haram apart from pig. So animals may be discouraged, they may be fine, they may be good, they may be, but no animal, according to the mainstream school or main school view, that no animal is haram beyond pig. So just bar pig, because that's what this verse reads. And the Maliki school is unique in that position. But we'll discuss that on another day, how a single verse can lead to so much difference of opinion. Right. Right. So this is, Allah is telling the Prophet that say to them, لا أجد, I don't find at all فيما أوحي إلي محرما على طائم يطعمه. I do not find anything from what has been revealed unto me haram for one to eat إلا أن يكون ميتا, unless it is a dead animal. So note here that the dead animal, the animal may not be haram, but it's because it was already dead, the carcass. That's haram. Right. So illa an yakuna maytatan aw daman masfuhan, which is blood that has been shed. So there were certain pagan practices that they would drink the blood. So that is what is haram. Note, it's not speaking about blood that is still within animals, but it's talking about the blood that is shed. Masfuhan, so they would kind of in a cup get it and they would drink it as a pagan practice. O lahma khinzir, or the meat of pig, of swine. فَإِنَّهُ رِجْسٌ, that is an impurity. O fisqan uhilla li ghayri Allahi bi. Now this, you see, or sacrificing to other than God. Now here, once again, this is a contingency ruling like the dead animal. The animal itself may not be haram, but because it's being offered as a pagan sacrifice, therefore the contingency makes it haram. Okay, so فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And that's always amazing, that note that whenever Allah speaks about meat being haram, mostly follows it by saying that, look, but if somebody's starving or somebody's doing, eat. And Allah didn't have to say that. Not each time, but here it is. Just reminding that, by the way, we're not talking about the exceptions. We're talking about the rule. So pig. This, as you can imagine, has, it's there's a lot of questioning about why the pig is haram. In this verse, what we're going to do is just take a brief look here, then we're going to step back, understand the Islamic rulings around the pig, and then we'll come back to some of the historicity. Note, right, that here the word rijs is used. So it is impure. Now, what does that exactly mean? Because when Allah says, فَإِنَّهُ rijs, it is impure. The scholars have discussed what is the it going back to. The pronoun, that it, is it going back to everything or is it just going back to the pig? So many have said it's going back to the pig. Some have said it's going back to everything. But even if it goes back to the pig, the word rijs is used, I believe, 9 times in the Quran. On most occasions, it's a metaphorical rijs, like فَبَاءُوا بِرِجْسٍ وَغَضَبٍ, that this kind of rijs and ghadab and anger from God descended upon them, or that the mushrikeen were rijs, or that it was a metaphorical kind of impurity, mostly when it's used, but it can refer to something literal as well. So in the Quran, the other verse speaking about alcohol and then saying gambling and also drawing lots, that is rijs. The same word is followed up. Okay. So, okay, we've got that. That's fine. Now I want us to pause that for a while whilst we take a look at some Islamic rulings around pig. Then we're going to come back to this. Okay. So we'll just wait for the slide to change. Now, in Islam, once again, now if this is new to some of you, it is not a, let me just forward that. We'll come back to that. Right. If this is new to some of you, then that's really just for a lack of your own understanding. You have to remember that Islam is incredibly diverse, and sometimes you may come across opinions that you're not used to. And that's fine. In fact, that's a step towards, hopefully, towards enlightenment and education, to learning and getting more light in there. Right, so within our tradition, the pig, we start off with, is the pig impure? Okay, and in fact, before we even go to impure, let's look at haram. All scholars agree, for generally speaking, that the pig is haram. Right, this is one of the most agreed upon rulings in Islam, that everybody agrees that pig is haram. And in fact, it has become an identity marker for Muslims. There was a small difference on the non-meat aspect of pigs. So, for example, what about the fat of pigs, pig fat? Is that also haram? Most scholars would feel that yes, everything, eating the pig in any way is haram. Imam Shawkani disagrees. He argues that whenever Allah mentions khinzir, he mentions lahmu khinzir, the meat, and doesn't mention shahmu khinzir. And therefore, that would suggest, he argues, that it is only the meat that is haram. Although he says that, he doesn't leave it quite clear that does he himself feel it's fine to eat the pig fat, but he argues for its permissibility. The second question, but the majority of the scholars clearly all say it's haram. All aspects of pig fat, pig meat, whichever way you look at it. The next question is the pig impure? Is it impure? Now, you'll be surprised to know that many ulama within Islam do not consider the pig to be impure. Okay, although many others have. So yes, people like the Shafi'i madhab, the Hanafi madhab, Hanbali madhab is divided. They feel, especially the Shafi'is, they feel the pig is najasul ayn. It is impure to its core. In its essence, it is impure. Many Hanafis agree with them. Some people say Imam Abu Hanifa didn't, but the Hanafi madhab generally agrees that the pig is impure to its core. The Maliki madhab, clearly from Imam Malik down, disagrees with that. The Maliki madhab said every living creature is always pure, including the pig. It is not impure, it's just haram to eat. And obviously when you eat it, it's dead. So, but life, the principle in the school of Medina, according to Imam Malik, is life necessitates purity. So every living creature, every living soul, everything that's alive is always pure. So according to them, let's say a pig was to drink out of a bowl. Now you have the famous hadith that if a dog drinks out of a bowl, do you have to wash it? So because according to the Maliki madhab, that washing is just for hygiene purposes, not because it's impure, because life necessitates purity. So the Maliki madhab says no. So the same thing with the pig. Many ulama, some of the Shafi'iyya, in fact, many of them said it's the madhab. Many of the Hanafis as well, and some Hanbalis as well, argued that if a pig drinks from a bowl, you have to wash the bowl 7 times or 3 times to make it pure. The Maliki madhab disagreed and said that no, life necessitates purity. It may be a hygiene issue, but it's not a filth or impurity issue. So you can already see the difference of opinion from these great imams, like Imam Malik, coming all the way down. The next question is, okay, what about pig hair? And this is used in brushes, and it's still used today. So once again, the ulama disagree. The Maliki madhab says pig hair is pure. It's not impure, and you can use it. There's nothing wrong with using pig hair. That's what Imam Qurtubi writes in his tafsir, and that's generally the Maliki view. In addition to that, there's a tradition that people bring, that Ibn Abbas, I think they bring Ibn Abbas's tradition, I believe, and some other Salaf would have sandals or shoes that contained pig hair. So they use this as evidence as well. This is also the view that Ibn Taymiyyah went to in saying pig hair is fine because it doesn't really, the life, because they say no blood is in hair. So therefore it's kind of pure. And I feel some Hanafis kind of did also go that way, but the majority of the Hanafiya, majority of the Shafi'iyya, majority of the Hanbalis all say pig hair is impure and you can't use it or have it. Whereas the Maliki school clearly says pig hair is fine. It's pure. You can have brushes made out of it or whatever you want. The next ruling is leather, the hide, the skin of pig. Now, here once again, people disagree because there is a hadith of the Prophet that kullu ihabin dubigha faqad tahur. Any hide, the leather of any animal, it says kullu, every animal, if you clean it, it is pure. So based on this, people like Sha'bi from the Salaf, from Tabi'in, Abu Yusuf from the Hanafiya, Imam Malik, his student Ibn Wahab, Sahnun, another great Maliki, and also the Zahiriya, those who were kind of like Imam Dawood, and other people all said pig leather is halal and it's fine because they said that once it's cleaned, and whatever tanning process you have to clean it, they said that's fine. Once it's clean, it is, and that's what the hadith states. So they say that's fine. Other people, like most of the Shafi'iyya, most of the Hanafiya, even many of the Malikis and many of the Hanbalis, apart from, so I did mention Imam Malik in one riwayah, I mentioned you have Ibn Wahab, you have Sahnun. To be fair, Ibn al-Faras says this is the view of the madhab. That's what he says. So the Malikis may have a disagreement, but this is a well-known position within the Maliki madhab as well. That and in fact, often led by them, that leather, all leather, even if it's pig leather, is always pure. So you can see straight away that there's quite a you see, now this may come as cognitive dissonance to many people, because they will think, oh, I thought pig is like absolutely disgusting, and it's like so impure, right, that you can't even say its name. So when we were kids, we wouldn't say the word pig. We thought that that was sinful to say pig. Oh, this is what people had told us. They said, you're not allowed to say pig. You have to say P-I-G. So I don't know how many people can relate to that. So, but yet it's nothing like that, because khinzir is in the word khinzir. There's nothing wrong with the word khinzir. It's in the Quran, lahmu khinzir, the meat of swine, of pig. And pig itself, according to many ulama of Islam, including Imam Malik, is pure itself, as in it's not impure. Like if it touched you, you don't need to wash. I mean, if you want to wash, that's fine, but it's not impure. It's not najis. Okay. Its saliva is not najis. Its hair is not najis, and you can use it for brushes. Its leather is fine. You can use pig leather. And this is all within the mainstream Sunni Islam. Okay, so you can already see these views are quite bewildering. And some people even argued about pig fat being not haram. But that was an extreme, that's Imam Shawkani arguing for that. But you can see there's quite a bit of, wow, okay, I didn't expect this kind of color and, color dynamics and diversity about pig. Right. Now, okay, so we put that aside. Now, we want to take a look at, right, yes, somebody said it was a curse word. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we were kids, we were told not to say it, and if you say, it makes your tongue impure. And I remember being in a proper dilemma at school, because I had to read this story and it said pig, and I remember thinking, and they were saying, oh, you're not allowed to say the word. And I was thinking, what do I do? So you got like this little 7-year-old trying to figure, what do I do? What do I do? Malfunction. Right. So now I want to take a look at, why is the pig considered rich and impure, and the only animal that is singled out in the Quran as haram, to the extent that the school of Medina, Imam Malik's school, said no other animal in Islam is haram to eat. It may be discouraged, but no animal is haram apart from pig. So the question is, why pig? Because does God detest the pig and hate the pig? Clearly not. That is not the case. God does not hate the pig. The pig is a creature like any other creature of God. It's not something Allah hates the pig. Allah has never said he hates the pig. So this is a misconception that we have. Okay. Right. Now, I'll just bring this back up. I'll show you. Now, this is the answer that we have been given. And I want to take a look at this, then I'm going to pause it. This is by Maimonides in his Guide for the Perplexed, that the pig's habits and its food are very dirty and loathsome. So when people say, why is pig such a detested creature in Islam? The understanding that we get from the Jewish tradition is that, well, it's dirty and it's loathsome. Now, this is important. Pause this for a moment. We have to remember that Islam, in many ways, is a continuation of the Mosaic tradition. Islam carries on the Abrahamic faiths. So you have Judaism, you have Christianity, which is really just part of Judaism. And in many ways, Islam is a continuation of that, of Judaism as well, because it's in many ways, it's not Jewish, but it's an extension and a continuation of the Mosaic kind of tradition, obviously with its own laws though. So it will inherit this culture. There is no doubt that the swine prohibition is inherited from the Jewish law. It's there in the book of Leviticus, it's there in the book of Deuteronomy. Okay, that it is mentioned that you shall not eat from the swine because, right, although it has cleft hooves, it doesn't chew the cud. It doesn't ruminate. So the animals that kind of ruminate their food, so they kind of digest it like cows do. So they have different compartments within their stomach. They have like 4 stomachs or whatever number of stomachs, and they have to chew, and then they regurgitate it and they chew it again, and they keep doing that all day. And that's expressed in the Bible as to chew the cud. So for an animal to be pure for the Israelites, it had to have cleft hooves and it had to chew the cud. So the Bible mentions about swine that it is forbidden for you because although it has cleft hooves, it has cloven hooves, but it doesn't chew the cud. Now, the Bible doesn't mention about it being filthy, or it doesn't go into much explanation on why, apart from this. So, okay, we know that it was definitely prohibited for the Jews, and we as Muslims have inherited this from the Jewish tradition. So it's one way of understanding. You see, we'll never have absolute knowledge. I want to put this, first of all, make this statement that, look, why is it haram the way it is? We can just have our assessment. This is an assessment that I'm presenting to you. You know, if it appeals to you, that's fine. If it doesn't, that's fine. Okay. So what I showed you here, when we look at the Jewish tradition, because if we want insight for this, it's best to go to their tradition. Why is it so hated in the Jewish tradition? Because it is. So we find them saying it's about its food and its condition. It's a very dirty creature, which it is unquestionably. Okay, so let's just pause that, and we have to go through a bit of history about the pig. So the pig, if you go back, I don't know, about 6,000 years ago, was an incredibly popular animal. Okay, in that kind of the Near East. Why? Because it was easy to breed, and it grew very quickly, rapidly. So within a year, you've got a full-fledged pig that you can eat, a lot of protein. And also, they were relatively easy to keep. They didn't take up much space. And they ate your garbage. So if you chucked out garbage and trash, they would eat that for you. So if you go back about 6,000 years ago, they were incredibly popular. And all these, you know, all these, not only people, all these kind of royalties have them because they use them. Then religious practices start. Because they eat the garbage, they started to be seen as scapegoats, that you can kind of sacrifice them and get rid of the spiritual filth. Okay, so you find certain there's certain Sumerian tablets that are found that speak of offerings of pigs, of many pigs, and these were a scapegoat. They kind of took on the sins of the people around them. So you had this culture, they're incredibly popular, and they're great. They eat people's trash, and people, you know, don't have to worry about anything. So this is going on. Then you go into the early Bronze Age. As time moves forward, the popularity of the pig decreases massively. Okay, so from about 4,000 BC onwards to about, let's say, 3,600, for about 400-500 years, you start to see a gradual first decline in pigs. From about the years 3,600 BC to about 15 1500 BC, something like that, the kind of late Bronze Age, there is a drastic decline in pig popularity, swine popularity. So how do we know this? One, obviously, from the kind of archaeological findings where we have cuneiform tablets and things, but better than that, from the bones. So archaeological digs have shown how much percent of bones, cattle bones, were pig bones. So you start to see them drop with the era. So when you're going towards just before Moses's time, just before, so from the time of 3600 up until 1500 BC, whatever, which is around the time of Musa alayhi salam, but before that, all that time, they rapidly decline in appreciation. People see, all of a sudden, they're seen as very filthy. They were already seen as filthy, but this garbage eating feature of these, it loses flavor. So people now see them as filthy. The other thing is they don't bear any secondary utility. So whereas cows give milk, sheep give wool, pigs don't give anything. They give meat, that's great, and they eat rubbish, but they don't give any utility. So the new kingdoms, like the Mesopotamian kingdoms and the Babylonians, these people start to see less utility in them. So they start to advocate for cattle, for other cattle that are actually more beneficial for the empire, for the kingdoms. In fact, I believe about 2000 BC, they are banished, pigs are banished from Mesopotamian temples. And also certain other, the Babylonian, certain temples around the Near East, they start to become banished and banned from those because they're too filthy. And now they're just left to an underclass. So who takes care of them? The underclass of society. So they become associated with the low class. Around this time, they also fall out of flavor in Egypt. So the Egyptian culture starts to show that there develops a dislike towards the pig. Some people say this may have been bolstered by the epic or the myth of Seth. See, according to the Egyptian stories, so in the Book of the Dead, you have the story that Seth takes on the form of a pig and attacks to kill Horus. Horus being the loved deity. So some anthropologists have argued that this gave rise to this became the beginning point for pig animosity or pig kind of hatred amongst the Egyptian culture. The same thing as you can see, like the serpent and the Abrahamic cultures. There's a disliking to the serpent, and the story of the Satan became a serpent and tricked Adam. So people see the snake as this cunning, and because the Egyptians had a similar story of Seth kind of taking the guise of a pig, so the pig becomes this detested creature within Egyptian, or at least a disliked culture. And some people say that's for his attack on Horus. Nevertheless, around this time, there's depreciation. You have to also keep in mind that pigs they don't have sweat glands. And especially in that part of the world with incredible heat, they do require a lot of water. So you have to take all of these things into consideration, because as a farmer, you have to choose what are you going to do. Pigs are terrible for pastoralists, but they are good in just small confined enclosures, but not for pastoralists. And then they consume a lot of water. They are very filthy to look at when they are just wallowing in their kind of dirt. And it is true that where they do also consume their feces, but that said, usually if under drought conditions and things like that. They do consume their own feces. Now, this, you may say other animals may do that as well at times, but you see, you have to put this all together to paint a social picture. Okay, just to first of all get that sociological picture that as the mosaic, as Musa alayhi salam's time is coming, Musa alayhi salam isn't even there yet. As he's coming, this is the landscape. People already don't like this creature, the pig, and it's already a burden, and it's seen with the underclass. Then something that I haven't mentioned, I did right. The pig also is known as one of the few animals that does carry certain parasites that can infect you either fatally or considerably. So it does have certain tapeworms, but also specifically it's, I did write it down, Trichinella spiralis, which leads to trichinosis. Now, trichinosis, although it was discovered only a couple of centuries ago, that it's a consequence of undercooked pork. And it can lead to things like extreme vomiting, diarrhea, and sometimes very severe infections as well. So other creatures can have it, but really it's namely with the pig. So you do have this trichinosis, so you do have health hazards as well. So you can imagine back then, people getting sick, eating the pig, and the pig is this filthy creature wallowing in this dirt and it's consuming at times its feces and doesn't offer any secondary value. And it's also with the underclass of society. And all of this is contributing to a picture, baggage of this creature. Now, now the Mosaic law comes. Pigs have been made haram. In the Jewish Bible, when the pig is made haram, not much detail is given, except that it just doesn't chew the cud. So it doesn't digest its food like the way the cow does. That's all. It doesn't say actually they were filthy or they were this or they were that, but it is haram for them. So, okay, this is definitely the basis. I then also, another view as well, as many anthropologists, and I also feel that this does carry some currency, that many anthropologists and historians have looked at, is the filth backdrop consolidates further down the line. So although the tahrim is there from the beginnings, that this is haram for them, now as time moves on, the story adds more kind of texture to it. So what do I mean by that? So first of all, when the Israelites moved to the Middle East, so after Moses, they go and conquer and set up the kingdom of Israel. When they set up the kingdom of Israel, the first point was they were the local people that were residing there. You had who were known as the Sea People from the Aegean Islands and referred to as the Philistines. Okay, that's not Philistine of today, although the name goes back to that. But these were not Arabs or Semites. These were people from around where Greece is, modern day Greece and that, but they had kind of migrated and they were living there before. They are the people that initially fight Dawood alayhi salam and all these people to fight David, so Goliath, and that's who they were, these Aegean people. One suggestion has been that when the Israelites arrived there and they set up settlements and this kind of battles, they go on for a considerable while before the Israelites take over and establish the kingdom. One argument is that the residents of that region would eat pork. So it added one more layer of us versus them. Okay, it's not huge, but it's a little. Fine. Now the kingdom of Israel is set up. Great. Another thing is with the kingdom of Israel, once again, now that it's a mighty kingdom, it's set up, there is the other. So with the other, you reinforce your own identity. Fine, that's moving forward. Like, let's say what's left of, the Babylonians and things like this. After the great monarchy, the United Monarchy is divided. Israel has two kingdoms. So you have northern Israel, the northern kingdom, which is called Israel, and you have the southern kingdom, which is the kingdom of Judah, where Jerusalem, and which was the main part. And all the Jewish major scribes were from Judah. They were from the south. I should have, let me check. I'll see if I have a picture here. Right, okay. So let me show you. So you can see there is just an example of a map divided there, the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel. Now, what's interesting here, check this. This is also the era that the Bible is rewritten. So the Jewish Bible, when the Israelites are released from the Babylonian captivity, they come back, and in the time that follows, they rewrite the Bible. Ezra and all the other rabbis as well. Now, most of them reside in the southern kingdom. What's interesting is archaeological studies have shown that from that era, right, the kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom, had up to, from the bones that were found from that era of cattle, they found up to 8% of them to be pig bones. So it appears that the northern kingdom, actually the Jewish people in the northern kingdom did have and must have been eating pig. Whereas the southern kingdom excavations and archaeological findings don't show hardly any pig bones at all from that era. So that's interesting. So one possibility here is the southern kingdom of Judah, the Judahites, where all these scribes and Ezra and all these people are, where Jerusalem is. And there's rivalry, by the way, between the northern kingdom and the southern. They see the northerners as less Jewish, that you're not. And one of the demarcating factors is, look at them, they eat pig, toba, like astaghfirullah. So it reinforces the identity. And remember, this is the time they're writing a lot of the early Jewish scripture. So that identity thing is getting consolidated even further. But it doesn't stop there. This is just the kind of beginning. What happens is, as time progresses, the whole Jewish kingdom collapses to who? Alexander the Great. He captures it. And the animosity that there is, what is one of the clear things that the Greeks do? They eat pig. It's an identity thing. Once again, you've got a bit of that us versus them. It's just adding a little notch. After Alexander, the kingdom, the Seleucid kingdom that follows, with his children and after his children, the Seleucid kingdom, you have a ruler by the name of, you've got here, Antiochus. Now, I'll just try and bring up, you can see the picture there, right, there it is. Right, so Antiochus IV, one of the things he does is he incredibly ruthlessly persecutes the Jewish people. He absolutely, apart from torturing and murdering and all the kind of atrocities that you can imagine, but he also attacks the temple, the great temple of Jerusalem. He attacks that and he desanctifies it. What he does is, as a sacrilege, he slaughters pigs at the altar in the Holy of the Holies. So he goes to the Holy of the Holies, which normal people can't even go into, right? And Antiochus, what he does is he has pigs slaughtered because he knows they don't eat pig at that altar within the Holy of the Holies, where normal Jewish people aren't even allowed to go because they're not pure enough. Here he smothers that with pig blood. This sacrilege hits so deep in the Jewish psyche that it leaves a scar that would follow for centuries. He doesn't stop here, by the way. Antiochus, what he does is he bans Jewish practices. He bans circumcision. And one of the interesting things he does is he would force several Jewish people to eat pig. And if they didn't, he would just torture them. I mean, he would basically be toying with them. So he'd get people, he'd torture them. And one of the tests, like with the Inquisition you saw with Muslim Spain, he would torture people and make them eat swine. And there's references to this within Jewish literature. And then he would kill them. If they didn't eat, many people would resist it. This became that iman thing for them. That will you eat the pig? Eat it and I'll let you live. And I won't eat it. I'll die a death. And this is it. People stood their ground and they were massacred, murdered. But the litmus test, not the litmus test, but this kind of the final ultimatum that would often be given to them would be to eat swine. Now, this is further burying into the Jewish psyche this repulsive hatred towards swine flesh, pig meat. This eventually leads to the Maccabean revolt, who actually take over from the Seleucids and actually have a kingdom that has and they have their kingdom for about 120 years or something like that. So you can see how deep this is into the Jewish psyche. And then to add to it, following Jesus alayhi salam, the new converts to what was still Judaism, but the new Judaism, which is Christianity, they said that we will still eat, like those laws don't apply to us, so they still ate pork. So you can see the kind of shock factor and the repulsive kind of tremors that it sent to the Jewish community. That these people, they claim to want to take from our tradition, and yet they eat this. Look, they eat pig. This is to the early Christian community. And check this, to the extent that Jews aren't even allowed to have blood in their meat. They have to drain blood out of their meat. And the Christians claim to drink the blood of Christ and eat his flesh as part of the Eucharist. So you can see these traditions led to a very deep-seated, repulsive animosity towards pig meat. This lay in the Jewish psyche for centuries, and centuries later is the advent of Islam. And in that time, Islam also, in many ways, is continuing from the Mosaic tradition, is following from Musa alayhi salam, the Abrahamic laws. And you have to remember that a lot of the Quran is saying, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا إِلَى كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ. That, oh, people of the book. And much of the Quran is addressing the Israelites, and it's continuing their tradition. So this thing of swine being so deep in their psyche, and keeping in mind that the pig was already an animal that did have health concerns, trichinosis. It did also have filth kind of aspects to it. It was also out of currency and out of flavor in the Middle East. People weren't they weren't interested. It was already associated with the underclass. And then Islam arrives, and it is a continuation of this Abrahamic tradition. So it consolidates that law saying pig is haram. Okay, so it is haram to eat, and it is the only animal that has been declared haram in the Quran per se, in and of itself. So as a continuation of the Mosaic law. But the filth aspect is really what lay deep down in the psyche of the Israelites. And Islam kind of honored their tradition, if you like, although it didn't really say it in that way, as you already heard, that many ulama felt that the pig was absolutely pure. Imam Malik, the school of Medina, they felt there's nothing, it's not an impure creature. Its saliva is not impure. Its leather is not impure. Its hair is not impure. But it honored that tradition of that was coming from the Mosaic law and the Bani Israel. So that's what I feel why we have this. So there is a health concern, that is true, trichinosis, but in addition to that, you have this psychosocial backdrop and landscape, in addition to cultural developments that took place over the centuries. I hope that sheds some light. Right, let's move on, people. What I'm going to do is I'll share the link. Right, let me just put this on. All right, and I'm going to share the link, and oh no, that's not the link. What am I doing? What am I doing here, people? What am I doing? There you go. I'm sharing the link. This will give you an opportunity. Meanwhile, if you want to, I'll look out for some of your questions that are here. I find it interesting how apocryphal gospels are similar to stories in the Quran, like the belief that God swapped Jesus with someone else. It's not in the Quran. That's not in the Quran. That's in apocryphal Muslim literature. It's not in the Quran. So you're just referring apocrypha to apocrypha. Right. So let me take a look at right. All right, Mariam, alaikum assalam. You're doing it. You're doing it. Right, Mufti, you looking younger. I was thinking about something. I'll share some thoughts, and then I'll go to taking on some guests. I think this was interesting. It was on my mind. I was speaking about it as well. I was watching Gary Vee, and he said something incredibly fascinating, I thought. And I do advise people to really, maybe he's not their cup of tea, but to follow, people of entrepreneurial thought. Right. So he was giving some interview, Gary Vee, and he was saying, look, he ends up speaking about age. And I think he's in his mid to late 40s. So he says, look, look at me himself. He says, I think at the time he's 45 or 46 or something. He says, look, I'm in my mid 40s. He says, but look how I'm dressed. He's dressed with this t-shirt, a cap, and, his kind of jeans. And he says, look, you have to understand something. People are living a lot longer. So people are living up until their mid to late 80s. The average person, let's say, the life expectancy has gone up. He said, we have access to incredible health care. We have access to vitamins, minerals, taking care of our health. And then he gives the example of himself. He says, look at me, look at the way I'm dressed, he says. He says, when I was young, he says, we'll never see a 40-year-old like this. And And he says, in fact, 40-year-olds, when he was young, or when we were young, he says, would have been finished. Like, you look at them and they're just finished. And he says, today, you look at them and he says, well, he says, this is what they dressed like. They dressed kind of like, almost like somebody in their 20s. And he says, because he says that 40s are the new 20s. Now, it's really interesting, you see, what he's saying at a deeper level, not at a superficial level, because if you analyze the mindset that when we were young, a person in their 30s had this incredibly mature, very man energy to them. A person in his 40s would have had a very serious, elderly energy to him. That's not the case today. You see, because of what technology and what the modern day and age has provided us, the mindset has also changed. Now, you look at a person in his 20s, they're like children. I'm serious. Like, the mindset, the maturity of a person in his 20s is just like an early teenage kid. People don't develop that kind of mature adulthood energy until much later now. And I want you to think about that. In fact, I was, I can't remember what, this conversation came up. I was sitting somewhere and there was there was a Bollywood, something was on, some kind of movie or something, and it was from the 90s. And I mean, I wasn't watching it or anything, but I just saw it on and we were having this conversation, and Akshay Kumar was in it, and this is from the 90s, and it just proved the point. I said, like, actually take a look at this character that he's playing. In the movie, he's somebody in his probably early 20s, and he probably is around that kind of age, or maybe mid-20s himself at that point. This is going from the movie, must be old, it must be early 90s. But there's this very incredible, there's this very man energy that the person has that you don't see in 20-year-olds, 25, you don't even see it in 30-year-olds. A person maybe towards their late 30s start to develop a bit of it. By the time they're 40, they then start to have that kind of adulthood energy to them. Now, why is this interesting? Relationships and everything, but especially, like, just think of one aspect, relationships. You see, especially men, even though they've entered biological adulthood, they still are just kids. And they don't reach that manhood. Now there's a delayed onset. They don't reach it till they're probably like in their late 30s. And by that time, if they got married young, then they've got kids that are already teenagers. So just think about that. That's like, when you think of the complexity, that, whoa. Because really, the amount of times that I'll hear about, and I'm sure many of you will hear, relationship issues, lack of maturity, lack of understanding, lack of this, lack of that. And it's true. But it's almost like a conundrum that what is the answer? Because really, these people, especially with the men, they won't really enter any kind of real man energy, that kind of matured energy, until, let's say a man is 22 years old. You got to give him another 15 to 18 years before he's going to really reach any kind of real. It doesn't matter if he thinks You see, a 25-year-old may say, no, I'm quite mature. But the reality is most of them ain't. They're just like kids. I mean, they're not, I don't mean by them being kids that they're stupid. They're not stupid. Kids ain't stupid. It's just that they just haven't reached that kind of energy yet. So, yeah, and I think it hits the Muslim community especially hard when it comes to relationships, because the Muslim community is in a bit of it's between a rock and a hard place. It doesn't know how to navigate through modern relationships, because we live in this part of the world where here there is a system that, I mean, whether we like it, approve of it, or disapprove of it, but there's a system that teenagers will have relationships, and they don't marry, but they just have relationships, and then they'll have their first heartbreak, and then they'll have another relationship, and that will last a couple of years, and then they'll have that heartbreak, and then they'll have another one, and you see, by this time, once they've gone through a bunch of heartbreaks and handling relationships, they kind of mature. The other thing that they do have in this community, I mean, in this part of the world, which the Muslim community doesn't really have, is they encourage personal space. So when a child is now, as soon as the child hits 18, they'll be like, right, all right, Dave, about time you get your own place. So, and there is an immense growing up in that process, because it's not just, you see, there's the financial side of it, which is burdensome with the responsibility, but it's not just that. Seclusion, having access to your space and being on your own in solitude, is incredibly important in developing that adulthood energy, that having that mature mindset. I feel it's very difficult to, because, you know, when you're on your own, there's nobody, there's just you. You're left to your thoughts. And this is another problem that today, because this generation is so hooked on everything, phone, me, social media, they're not left to their thoughts. Because sometimes when you face your thoughts, you have to allow your thoughts to take you on your own. And then at times they take you through dark encounters. And metaphorically, you have to face your demons. But you need your space to do that. And you then go through it. It doesn't happen quick, but you go through it. And on the other side, you emerge as a man. And that is very difficult in Muslim communities, because everybody just lives in one house. Everybody's just living there. So you don't have that. So the only space they have is while sitting in a car. And okay, but it's not really the same. And then they haven't had as many open relations. They haven't had the same relationship experience as their non-Muslim counterparts. Because even if they have, let's say they've had some relation, but because it's all hush-hush, it's only, it's not the same. Because the non-Muslims have had public relationships. They've had girlfriend, boyfriends since school, growing up. So they've had like 3-4 heartbreaks already, and they've learned how to cope with it. And they've learned to accept rejection. So many Muslims, the first proper full-on relationship they're having is really, and I'm just giving an observation. I'm not saying everybody should go out there, do this, but I'm just showing the problem. That, you see, Muslims have it like with a marriage. Now they get married, so this is their first trial. This is going to be the one that's going to go horribly wrong, because they don't know how to handle a relationship, don't know how to handle another person. They don't even have space. Still living with everyone, and the girl's living there as well. and then maybe some children come along the way, and they haven't even matured. And then maybe there's this turbulence, and God forbid the relationship breaks. People don't know how to handle rejection. They don't know how to handle heartbreak. It's important. ये दिल का टूटना भी जरूरी है. You have to, the heart has to go through some fractures in life to kind of come back stronger. But if you haven't, then this is why in many Muslim cases, I'll never, there's toxic relationships, and you speak to people sometimes, they say, I'll never give her a divorce. I will beat the hell out, I will kill her, but I won't let her go with another man. You see, that's that teenage energy. See, that's where this society got that all out of their system when they were like just teenagers. But because we're trapped between worlds, you see, it's different. People say, yes, but in our community, we don't have this dating thing. We don't have this. And I know we don't. But we're not living. You see, one of the challenges, this is why I'm saying I'm pointing out the challenge. I'm not saying, okay, that is the solution. But what I'm saying, because that has its own problems, that you see, we have a model that may work. I don't know how successfully, but it may work in Pakistan or in India or in Afghanistan now or Iran or Saudi Arabia. But it definitely isn't here, but we are living that model here in the West, where they have an entirely different model. And so, yeah, I just found it very fascinating thinking about all of these and just thinking that, wow, and when I heard Gary Vee saying that, it just kind of made so much sense about the onset, the delayed onset of that kind of maturity. And also of just age, like how when he said 40s are the new 20s. And he wasn't just speaking about trying to be young. He was trying to speak about how the landscape has changed. But yeah, I thought I'd share that with you guys. Right. Let me... Oh, there's a... Right, there's the link. Let me... All right, people, who have we got here? Wait a minute, I've recognized that name. Muhammad Wilkinson.
There you are. Oh, I look very tired. Oh my god.
Wilkinson, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Yeah. As you can see, background hasn't changed, but my location has changed. Yeah.
Has it? Allahu Akbar. I remember speaking to you last, and yes, you were going through some...
yeah, some stuff, and I'm through that now, and I'm here in Morocco, which is cool. Marrakesh, yeah.
Allahu Akbar. Yeah, all right. So, what else? All right, Wilkins. So, what is going on? Talk to us.
I mean, well, I'm in Morocco, and it's so interesting because, like you said, like it was fascinating what you were saying earlier about being with yourself, being with your thoughts. You do sometimes you don't know what you want until you kind of reach that sort of destination. So, for example, obviously I knew I didn't want to be in the UK, for example, right? And I knew I wanted to leave, but I didn't know exactly where. But I had Morocco in mind, so I come to Morocco. I've been here for a week now, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it way more than the UK. But I like going to. Have you ever been to Marrakesh? Just curious.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So do you know
I've traveled throughout Morocco quite a bit. I know Morocco pretty well. Yeah.
So the
especially Fez. You've got especially Fez, Rabat. I know
Rabat,
people in Rabat. Rabat and Dar al Bayda, Casablanca. I've known several, especially the business sector there. We've had quite a few dealings there in the past as well. So I know some regions pretty well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm gonna do the little tour around, but either way, I have this little haunt in the Jama Khana Square, and you know how they have these sort of
Is
I
that
don't
where you're
know
staying,
whether,
Jamal Fana?
yeah, in a Riyadh near the Jam El Fana.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So like it's just a couple like 5 minutes walk away from here, and you know, when I have after I finish my teaching, I go off and I eat my dinner, and I just sit there and they give me free refills of green tea, which is great. And I just sit there, just people
See, the
watching,
student life, the
It's
student
not,
life,
it's
Zindabad,
not a
huh?
student life. It's an adult life, man. Adult life. Oh, but you
It's
were a student at that time. Yeah, 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 yeah. Hmm.
no. Are you not studying there as a
I'm not
student?
studying. No, 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 no.
Oh, you're just,
I'm,
oh, you're working.
yeah, I'm self-employed, man, and yeah,
All right.
yeah, and I just, I had enough money, and I just had the opportunity to come and fully vaccinated, all that stuff, and so I came. Yeah,
Why
yeah,
not? Why not?
yeah. This
I
is a
really,
this is a
it's
nomad,
something which I think to myself that if, I suppose now it's a different stage of life, I mean,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
otherwise I feel that um, I wouldn't mind. I mean, I suppose I could still do certain variations of it, but not in that sense. But let's say I I do still find an appeal to this thing of just traveling to different places and living there for like let's say 6 months
Yeah,
and just gaining life experience
right,
because I
exactly.
think it's like what you're doing now.
Yeah,
You will obviously you're working there, but you're gaining real life experience. I mean, you're
yeah.
very young still, and you're
Mm.
obviously in a part of the world picking up culture. You're going to have all kinds of experiences. Somebody might try and rip you off, and as they often
Oh,
do
that's
in
already
countries and that.
happened. That's already
And
happened.
wow, if I
Oh.
knew it's that entertaining, we have to we have to we have to get Wilkinson ripped off on a few more occasions.
Oh my god! But I am proud of some of the things. This bracelet. This like it's like so one of the guys, they took me into his jewelry shop and he kind of showed me this, and I thought, oh, that looks cool, like a Viking bracelet. And this is my first experience of haggling. Getting it down from what he
Okay.
wanted 750 dirhams. He wanted, which is something like, what's that again? Um, uh,
150, what is that? About what is that? 80,
yeah.
about 80 pounds?
Oh,
Yeah.
60 pounds, yeah, 62
60
pounds
pounds,
or
yeah,
something.
60. Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
something. Yeah, so 60 pounds, right? But I got him down to 300, man. Yeah, 300. I had a
All right.
300, and then he
And
got it down
and
from
he's
750. Yeah,
he's
he's
probably
confirmed.
thinking, it's actually just worth 80.
Oh my god. Yeah, oh, it's so funny. Yeah, yeah. But it's fun. It was
Right.
fun doing that because it's new to me, haggling and stuff like that, because in Britain and Saudi Arabia as well, you just pay the price, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's very cool. The only thing I wanted to add to what you said about the pigs and stuff, which is really interesting. I don't know if you've heard of the game Minecraft, but it's something I play a little bit, or maybe
I've
a bit
heard
too
of it.
much.
I haven't played
Yeah.
it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
So it's like a farming simulator, but in Minecraft there are pigs, there are cows, and there are sheep, and there are horses and stuff. And just like in real life, the cows, they give milk. They give
I thought you just added that caveat to just tell us like there are cows, pigs, and just as there are in real life as well. I thought that's very courteous of you.
like the
I thought,
cows.
wow, like are we
Yeah.
like 3-year-olds with learning difficulties here?
No, but so the cows, they give milk and leather as well as the meat. The sheep give wool and the meat, but the pigs, they
Wow,
only give
this
meat.
is a lot of learning here.
They only. I just wanted to
The cows give milk, yeah. The cows give.
You definitely do.
Cows
You
give
just get
milk.
you just get a pail, right? Get a pail, and no, but like the point here is, even in this game, the pigs don't give anything else other than meat. And I when I played it, I made like a sheep farm, I made a cow farm, but I didn't make a pig farm. Yeah, and not that I like, as even as a Muslim, I have no problem eating pork meat inside the game. Yeah, because it's just a game, right? It's not haram or halal, you know, it's just a game.
It's just game sins you're earning.
I wonder how many Muslims, you know, they play Minecraft. They're like, "Is this haram? Is this halal?" And they go to the imam. Can I eat pork in my Minecraft?
That's the thing. Like, you get people sometimes wonder that, can I feed my pet haram? So they say no. They say I can't feed that. I can't feed my cat or my dog, for example, meat, because that's haram meat. And you think of it, yeah. You think the Sharia dietary laws don't apply to the dog and the cat.
I know, right? It's just, yeah, it just gets so wild. But like I said, like I naturally made a sheep farm, I naturally made a cow farm, but I kind of ignored the pigs because, like you said, they don't have any secondary utility. And what I'm trying to say there is that it corroborates what you were saying about the historical
Wow, that's
kind of
interesting that
trend.
you say that, because you see what you were virtually doing,
Yeah,
although it was, unbeknownst to you, but you
yeah,
were replicating or mirroring what a particular
civilization,
civilization was doing at the
right?
late Bronze Age, because they
Yeah,
needed more economic development, and they were thinking, well,
right,
apart from meat, what do these pigs even offer? So
exactly.
let's invest. We need wool for this empire. We need this. We need to
Hmm.
barter. We need kind of products. We need, yeah.
Yeah, no. So I just wanted to add that, and yeah, definitely, and just to add about the Jama Fana stuff, like just sitting there thinking about life, seeing the people pass. It really is a kind of meditation because I just sit there with
Yeah.
my tea, and
Wallahi, that is
yeah,
amazing, because we have to. I don't know. I wonder, actually, because I wonder how equal this is. I know it's equal, as in men and women need it, but I wonder if it's equally needed. I don't just mean the thing as a whole, but in equal measures, or do men need this more? But I find
I
that,
think men need it
especially,
more.
yeah,
I
I
think
was going to say, I
women,
felt
yeah, no.
that men need it more. I feel this is my. I could, obviously, I've got to be gender fluid and experience it
No,
as
no,
a
but
woman.
it's not that. This is just my experience, and I have been in relationships before and stuff. I just find that I like to ponder about things. I like to ponder about, why is this pink, whereas a woman, she's more concerned about practical things and daily stuff, and the future and the
No, I
past.
didn't mean it in a way to just completely diss the entire women,
No, but it's
all the
not.
women.
I'm
I
not
didn't
dissing
mean
the
it in
but
to be
but but
misogynistic.
but it's not about that. It's just about they channel their energies in a different way. I can say that.
I, I,
I think
I,
that's a fair way of saying it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel as well that it's that we have our, like, everybody has a struggle. And I feel that sometimes that we all need solitude, but men have to, in that kind of what pondering
Well,
that goes off, they have to
Prophet
face
Muhammad did
certain
it. Yeah, the Prophet Muhammad did it.
demons.
Yeah. Well, he
I mean,
didn't. Well,
not, no, no, not. I wouldn't say demons in that sense with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam,
yeah,
but
yeah, but
for
he
people,
did go. Mm,
yes, of
yeah.
course, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would go to Ghar Hira. He would go,
Yeah,
seek
yeah. His
solitude,
wives,
reflection,
his wives. Yeah.
mindfulness.
Having said that, Sayyidina Maryam did have solitude, and in her temple. So there are women that do need the solitude, right? And they
No, of
do
course.
benefit.
I
Yeah.
I wasn't saying, so, just to be
Yeah.
clear, right? I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
that people, I was saying I wonder if they need it in the same
Yeah.
size, or is it
Yeah.
that everybody needs it? But
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
definitely think that there is a major there's a handicap situation that I
It's
feel that men are more immature relatively to women, that are definitely, with an age thing. I think especially men that are young men, they're way more immature than the women, than their female counterparts.
Is that why they all like anime? Mm-hmm. And women don't seem to be interested. Anyway.
There you go. Anyway. See, these are the real world issues right here.
Yeah, exactly.
But having your own space is so important to just, even if it's to just lose yourself in it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think that's such an important process, isn't it? This kind of coming of mental age. You need to kind of
definitely. It makes it like, because like I said, like I knew I wanted to leave the UK, and the next stop was Morocco. But then what then, right? And that isolation, not isolation, but that sort of like meditation.
There you go. That's really a good point made by Scorpio, that men are more immature. That's why women need more solitude. That's it. Because all the men like you, they're just watching anime. So it's like, there's no wonder they need solitude. They're like, yeah, I need to get out of this.
Yeah, but I figured out my next destination, Mufti. My next destination. Yeah, I'm not going to stay in Morocco. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. What's your next destination?
The Philippines. Yeah.
Philippines. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a reason? Is there a trend we're supposed to be? Is there a pattern we're supposed to be detecting?
What pattern are you talking about? All the countries are cheap so far, right? So I just have to go to the cheapest object. That isn't the pattern. Yeah.
I'm gonna fall off my chair here. Are you seeking out a wife? Is that what's going on, or wives? Shall we say?
Yeah. No. What? No. You think I can handle more than one? You think I can handle more than one?
Well, you can have virtual ones in Minecraft.
Actually, you can't. Yeah, but
can't you? Oh
no.
What use is a kingdom and an empire if
without a queen? Hey, I don't know. Good question.
Yeah,
Good question. Yeah.
So is this what the quest is? Is this what the real quest is?
I mean, that's what it seems to have turned out. Like it's yeah.
In search of the one.
In search of the one.
Unfortunately, in this case, the one is not God. You ought to be in search for the one, Allah.
I already have it. I already have it. I already have.
Oh, you already have.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
but he's always with me, and he's telling me you need to find someone else. No.
So okay, and what? So how long have you been in the Maghrib now?
1 week, about 1 week. Yeah.
1 week, and you're moving on.
Well, no, not because the Philippines is closed, right? So I'll just sit here, bide my time until it opens.
And wait a minute, you can't find the one. You can't find the queen in
Morocco. I'm not interested. Yeah, not interested. Yeah.
Oh, look at the point that he said. Yeah, you got to unpack some of this because so many people have got questions right now. You've got people going off into solitude with this answer of yours.
No, it's like. Oh, I'll put it this way. I have been married before to a Filipina. Yeah, that didn't work out. Yes.
Filipina. Okay, so I see.
It isn't my first radio. Yeah, so. And,
you've got people picturing all sorts now. This is quite rather inappropriate.
I haven't said anything. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So it's
I just realized that after that one didn't work out, but either way, and then I was thinking maybe am I attracted to others? No, not really. So I've kind of decided to go back.
Oh, so you're not actually attracted. Okay, so that's interesting. So you thought, let me check out other ethnicities, and you went to, and you just didn't, and you found yourself thinking,
Yeah,
okay, you
yeah,
thought Philippine
yeah,
is the one.
yeah, definitely, yeah, definitely,
Wow,
yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah. So,
Well, so whoa, right. So let me just get rid of that. Some bee came flying in. Right. So okay, yep. So okay. so
yeah,
so talk
yeah.
to so when you go to these places, you teach there. You get a job.
Right,
You
no,
get
no,
these.
no. There's a website called italki.com where you can tutor in different languages, and
Ah, right. Okay.
so I was a teacher on italki since I was in England, and I'm still on it, yeah. And the great thing is, it just you make the money in dollars, and you transfer it to your PayPal or Payoneer, and you transfer it to your bank
Fair
account
enough.
like that. So it's just like it doesn't
And then
require
of
me to
course,
be in it.
to crypto.
Eventually, when I have money, right? Right? Yeah, definitely. Like, because
Yeah.
crypto's, like you said, is the future for sure, isn't
It's
it?
picked.
Right?
It's picked. Yeah. It took a dip, right? But it's back up.
Yeah,
It's getting back.
yeah. No, but I mean, aside from the short-term ups and downs, the society's moving towards that, right? The zeitgeist, the mentality of the people, how they think about money is changing, isn't it? Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm, mm.
No, shukran, man. No, Wilkinson. It is epic as always to have your thoughts, and more than anything, your laughter
Oh yeah, I think
on this.
other people think my laughter is competing with yours. So I'm
No,
sorry,
I
but I'm
think it
taking.
beats mine. I think it
Yeah,
beats mine by.
I'm sorry for taking your throne there, but
No,
it's just.
you deserve that crown. That's all
uh,
yours. Have it.
thank you. Okay, you
It
can be
is
my.
definitely.
Yeah, you can be my
It's
minister of laughter. Yeah, there you go.
somebody said,
Yeah,
yeah, look, it's a gift. It is a gift. It's a gift. Trust me.
yeah.
Right.
No, it
So
is. It's so important to just laugh. Like, yeah, yeah. To make, like sometimes I'm not always full of laughter, but usually I am, like 99.9% of the time. Even in
bloody hell,
my
that's quite
italki
a
day.
bit of a. That's quite a bit of a. That's not how they do the statistics usually when they say, they don't say 99.9%. You might as well just say 100%.
But no, I have to make allowance.
Oh, Wilkinson just froze. Look at that. It must be the internet in Morocco. Well, it was a pleasure, Wilkinson. All right. Okay, let's see who else have we got here. Zepic, and that laughter, that frequency, that pitch that he reaches. Having this bee kind of floating around me, trying to do tawaf. Right. So, all right, from Kazakhstan, living in Chicago. Moroccan internet. Yep, that's it. Who do we have here? Let's bring on. We've got. Who is? I can't see one or two of the cameras actually. You need to switch them on. We've got Oban al-Rekabi. Oban. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you, Mufti? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Okay.
Crystal clear.
All right. Well, I just wanted, first of all, to thank you for everything you've done. I've been following you since the beginning of this year, and
since
honestly,
the beginning of time.
Yeah,
I thought you were about to say since the beginning of time.
No, I was gonna say, I wish.
I was gonna say,
since the beginning.
Tone it down a bit. That's too much blagging.
No, I wish since the beginning. But yeah, I mean, it's really nice to hear your perspective. Just to add on to the other conversation that you had before about solitude, it kind of reminded me of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. when he went into solitude for for extended periods of time in order to ponder. So I think this is I think this is something that's really important because it's even in our traditions.
The reflection and the solitude.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But I had a particular question in mind. I don't know if it's too long, if it's appropriate, but we'll give it a try. I wanted to know your take on what exactly is a kafir, like in the Quranic term, because I mean you hear a lot about takfiri groups and people saying that Christians are kafir and Jewish are kafir, and some people say the Shias are kafir, some say the Sunnis are kafir, Sufis are kafir, whatever, And so, and I feel that this is just out of proportion. It's not what the Quran means by kafir.
What it seems from the Quranic discourse. You see, because all of these people take their permutations of kufr from the Quran, and they'll base it on loosely. They'll say this verse here is speaking about this, therefore the Shia are kafir. This verse is speaking about this, therefore this person is a kafir. I would, you see, what it appears from the general, if you're trying to be as genuine with the discourse, it seems that the kafir of the Quran is the person that out of stubbornness rejects God. It seems that the person he seems to know God, and there's an arrogance to refuse to accept him. And this is what it seems. Allahu A'lam, but that's how that's where I find myself. Some people may say, no, it's just somebody who lacks information or just says no, whether it's out of stubbornness or nothing, just says no, they are a kafir. But to me, that would be the true definition of a kafir.
Okay. Because it seems to me that a kafir, well, at least from because I've read the Quran a couple of times, and from what I understand, it seems to be those who actively fight against the Prophet, who take an active role against him, rather than just because I remember there's a particular verse where it says where there's the kuffar and mushrikeen in the same verse, as in talking about two different peoples.
Okay, yes, okay, I see what you mean.
So I feel like one is taking like the mushrikeen are just those who don't believe in God, but since they're not actively fighting the Prophet and his message and the companions, well, they're not kuffar, while those who actively fight, because I mean, but that's just, but I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Mm-hmm. No, it makes sense. I guess everybody can have a take on what the Quran uses the term kafir. I think for the most part, it is not our job. We are not tasked to be kind of administering who 100%, who is in that sense. I don't mean, you see, there's different ways of looking at things. So there is a structural perspective that you have Muslims and you have non-Muslims. Okay, so from that sense, it's very clear anybody who's a non-Muslim could be called a kafir. So this is fine from just as far as nomenclature and terminology is concerned. Then you're saying kafir in the sense how Allah is saying kafirs and all this, that who Allah deems as a true ukhrawi kafir, a kafir of the afterlife.
Yeah.
That kafir there's not a necessary crossover. So a kafir who is just not a Muslim, therefore we're calling him a kafir, is not necessarily the kafir of the afterlife. There's not a necessary crossover, because you don't know, because there's different, because people probably don't understand God. They probably, plus Islam has been so tainted due to propaganda, due to just the message being diluted, due to distortion. So, as Imam Ghazali said in his time, that the Byzantine, the Romans, for them, who were the Romans still, Eastern Romans. So he said that those Christians are not Kaffir in that sense. They're Kaffir in this dunya, but they're not Kaffir of the Akhirah, because Islam has become too distorted for them. So they wouldn't want to embrace it.
Okay.
So in that sense, Islam today is way too distorted. In the West, it's way too distorted for most people. Even if they tolerate it or they accommodate for it, is a better word.
Yeah.
But they're not interested in embracing it, because it's not. It's
yeah. They'll see it as backwards.
I was watching. It's not even. It's not even that. Like, there is that, of course, but I was watching this interview of Mike Tyson, and and he says in it, I was really surprised actually, because by his transparency and honesty, and he says, look, I never really believed in religion, and he says I only used religion because it helped me.
I remember that.
And he says, I never believed in it. And until of late. So now he does believe in God and everything. But he says, before I never really believed. And he says, religion has too much conflict in it. He says, every religion has too much conflict in it for me. And you see, that is interesting. Because here is a person, you're getting a perspective of how it seems to the outsider. Religion just seems too full of conflict. If you weren't a Muslim today, if you were born a non-Muslim in the Western country, and even if you grew up to kind of respect other faiths, so you're a very respectful person, you can even appreciate that Islam has many great values to it. And let's say you even think that the Prophet Muhammad was a great human being. Now, you probably still would be very reluctant to accept Islam, because Islam would appear too full of conflict. It would appear that, why would I want to be a part of that? Like, you'd think, like, I can appreciate it from a distance. I don't need to be a part of it, because there's too much fighting, too much hatred. People, once you get into it, it's all sectarianism, and it's surprising. I read a comment a little while ago about me. I think probably been a month or something.
Okay.
So some people they wrote some, I don't know, they had some clip about me. The clips were old, but I don't know. I think I don't think it was like a big channel or anything, but somebody had just shared a clip. And to be fair, they haven't for a reasonable while. People haven't been doing that, but this whatever did, and somebody sent it to me. And because I couldn't see it, I clicked on it. I don't really bother watching stuff like that, but I went on there and I saw it. I was like, oh, all right, not interested. But I saw the comments and I thought, oh, okay, let me see the comments, because it came up on the desktop. And it was just really fascinating that all these people on there were just making dua, like literally. They were saying, I pray to Allah that he just becomes an atheist. And I found it really, like, it was so disappointing, because I thought, you are praying to Allah that I deny Allah in all his glory, and I reject the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I mean, you are actually praying for me to do that. And I think, wow, like that it kind of shocked me, because I thought, this is just, I just don't know. You can't make head or tails of it, because you think these are people praying because of their Islam. They are praying people leave Islam.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
well, this is
so you wouldn't. I mean, that's just a tiny example.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, this is exactly why I wanted to ask the question. Is because I see that occur a lot. I mean, I'm originally from Iraq, and obviously, as you know, in the news, with ISIS and everything, those takfiri groups popping up, and then and just around me, I see like a lot of hatred and people calling each other kuffar, and this guy's a kafir, and this guy's a deviant, and this guy's a this. Well, you're in the bilad al kuffar, and you know, whatever. And I'm just thinking, like, what makes you classify these people as kafir? Who are you to classify? So that's why I wanted to know exactly, like, what is behind that word that makes people so they, you know, give them the right to cast others out as kuffar, which is why I wanted to know exactly
It's
in the
just
Quran, who
it's
does
just
Allah say is a kafir, so that, you know.
you see, this really is something much simpler than that, and that is that we as creatures
Are
wish to
territorial.
exert we wish to exert dominance and control over our environments. That includes cyber environments, that includes mental environments. So they could be psychosocial landscapes, they don't have to be physical landscapes. We wish to exert control, and what better control than than somebody being deluded into thinking they are the voice of God, or they speak on behalf of God. That is so powerful.
Yeah.
And then I chuck this. You see, I'm more virtuous than you. I'm more righteous than you. My beard is longer than yours. It's so crazy. Like it surprises me sometimes that the supersized egos that are found within religion.
Yeah, 100.
Because Islam,
100%.
religion came to extinguish this ego, and the supersized egos that we have in the name of Islam and in the name of religion, they're just astonishing, and they're laughable.
Yeah.
Like it's so, it makes you like you think this is so amusing.
Yeah, no, I understand it.
Yeah.
It came for ego death, but it only grew people's egos. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I made I was speaking. I saw I think I spoke about that before. Did I speak about?
About what? Ego death?
No, not about the ego death. Obviously, I've spoken many a times about that.
Yeah, I
But,
saw your mind trap with Muqtadar Khan.
Oh right,
I haven't
yes.
finished it. I haven't finished it, but I have about
really
an hour
enjoyed
left.
that. Yeah, I
But
thought
yeah, it's very interesting.
great person to talk to, and alhamdulillah, he's got really good vibe. When you get speaking. But yeah, so Aban, shukran. I think it's, as always,
Thank you.
It's been
Thank
good
you very
to
much.
have you on. Have your thoughts. Take care of yourself.
I have other questions, but for another time. But
okay,
for this, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Take care.
I'll see you around, Mufti. Ma'as-salam.
Shukran. Likewise. So, all right, people, that was Oban Rikabi. All right. So, let me just see who else we've got here. People, I can't see some of the cameras. So, if you bring up the cameras, and then I could bring you on. Right. Okay. Meanwhile, we've got a question. Nora Parish. Shukran for the super chat. Much appreciated. You're helping this former atheist and Westerner find God because of your openness and respect. Thank you enough for your work. I'm deeply honored, and shukran for your comment, for your super chat, and more than anything for sharing that sentiment, because it taps right into that transparent discourse that is needed, because I find it really strange, and I find myself also drawn to this whole thing of saying, well, we ultimately, see, whether you like it or not, we are driven by a yearning for God. And I think what the modern world does, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but what it does is it really quite effective, to some extent, effectively puts us on a distraction conveyor belt of tasks, victories, achievements, and just experience. So there's quite, I got to get this, I got to get into this career, got to get this job, I need to work my way to management, I need to get this startup, I need to do this, or I need to be in a relationship, or I need to be out of this relationship in a different one, or I need to, children or whatever. But these distractions, the modern world, especially because of the opportunities, and I think that's amazing that we have these opportunities. I love the fact that we have these opportunities and I partake in them, but I feel that it does an effective job of momentarily numbing that yearning. But that the power behind that yearning can't be numbed or silenced for too long. It bubbles up and reemerges. And you find yourself at times in solitude or just at stages in life, just thinking about existence, thinking about, what is it all about? And if the fact that that there is meaning, that there is intelligibility of being. You see, I don't mean by that we are intelligent, but that there is intelligibility of being. That being in and of itself, it is in its essence intelligible. In its essence. You see, so that means information precedes it. Because meaning, for there to be meaning, it precedes it. So the bit precedes the it. In one way to put it, the information precedes matter. And so you think, wow, and the more we learn, honestly, I find it thrusts us back into that. I think people are just scared of, you see, they're kind of scared of God, because not of God per se, but because of scared of religion with all its baggage, because of medieval Europe and the church, and there's just so much. The scars run deep in the collective consciousness. So people are scared and they feel, I don't like the abuse that was carried out in the name of religion. I don't like, and I get that. That makes sense. But there is a yearning. And it's quite irresistible. And I think at a point, a person, it's a beautiful discovery when we do come face to face with it. Right, who do we have here? We have Rami. All right, Rami.
Hey, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
How you doing, Mufti?
How you doing,
man?
How you doing?
Yeah, Mufti, you are a man, because if there was a bee in my house, I wouldn't be on the camera. I would have been flipping the computer. You're just so calm, just flying past you.
Yeah, there you go. As a kid, I had this weird thing that I would catch bees.
No, I have a phobia of bees.
So I don't have a phobia of bees. In fact, I just caught that one, and I think I just may have crushed it. But so bees, for some reason, I didn't. But I mean, is there something I don't like? You see, surprisingly, I've not been much of a. We've just not grown up with many pets and stuff. We've not really had that, so I've not been around. Which I think is a bit of a lacking. I should have. It'd be fun, because now I was trying to get some pets for the little ones, and you think, well, bloody hell, I've not been around. I don't know how to react or. Yeah, mice. Actually, mice. I can't stand the look of mice. I don't like the look.
I think they're cute.
Yeah.
I think they're cute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It's okay. I begged my parents for a dog. I begged them. I remember printing out.
I thought you were about to say I begged my parents for some mice.
No, I'm not one of those weirdos, right? But no, I begged my parents for a dog when I was a kid, and I remember I did this printout where I signed my name, like, I promise I'll walk it, I'll promise I'll pick up its poo, whatever. And yeah, it just never worked out. But I know there's a lot of people waiting, so I do want to ask a question to you.
Go for it, man.
So
I like the headgear style thing you've got going there, man. Look at that.
It's funny because I actually have a podcast I have to do tomorrow, like for my job actually. So I had to buy this thing. So it's actually testing with you. You know,
you want to let's give a shout out to your podcast.
No, it's not my podcast. It's not my podcast.
Oh, it's not yours. Oh, right. Okay.
So all right. So my question is regarding revelation or wahi, right? Insofar as the Quran, and I want to preface this question by saying, I'm not trying to squeeze some Bukhari gate or anything to do with, hadith criticism. So my question has nothing to do with that.
Sure.
So in the authentic, hadith literature, there are clearly narrations that we could only label as revelation or wahi, whether it's simple stuff like, how many rakats you have to do during the nightly prayer, or eschatological events such as, what are the signs of the day of judgment.
Are we talking about the Quran? Or are we talking about hadith?
Right now, I'm talking about the hadith. I'm saying in the hadith, there's clearly narrations that you could only deem as wahi, right?
Of course, yeah.
And so if that is true, then it's obviously safe to say that, the Quran is not a complete recording of all of the wahi that the Prophet, peace be upon him, received. So my question is, what do we know? If we know anything about how the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the companions decided what wahi to include or not include in the Quran?
Okay, it's a very interesting question. It's got a lot of kind of layers to it. But taking a shot at some of it, that first of all, you see how I explain revelation. I explain revelation as so hadith, and that is not revelation. It would really just be sacred scripture. The scholars of Kalam, the Aqidah scholars, theologians, have disagreed amongst themselves how revelation works. Obviously, how could anybody truly have an understanding? We just go by certain definitions that are given. So they say that wahi, in its pure sense, what I like to refer to it as, borrowing the term from physics and astrophysics, that the singularity.
Okay.
So pure wahi, like within the black holes, how you have the singularity, it is just the singularity. That is real wahi. That is wahi at its core. It is just now so what many ulama of kalam, of aqidah, like Abu Bakr al-Baqalani, the great Maliki, who's a student of Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari and all, they state that revelation then manifests in this world so when it manifested with Moses, it was in that language, with Jesus in the Gospels, with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it manifests in Arabic as an Arabic Quran.
Correct.
So now this appears to the Prophet. They disagree. How does it appear? Some say it appears out there. Some people say it appears within his heart to him. He kind of sees it. However whatever people choose, the point is that this is wahi, and there is a qualitative feel to the language of the Quran when you juxtapose it with hadith, and nothing the same. Hadith just seem to be like reports, like somebody saying, "Oh, I saw," and the language in it is categorically distinct. It's nothing. It does not resemble, for the most part. Maybe there's some one-off kind of hadith.
I get it. Yeah,
they don't resemble the Quran from a mile in any of its style. So, yeah. So I wouldn't categorize that as wahi in any way. If what you mean is, well, they are giving glimpses of the unknown, like let's say there's certain hadith talking about things which are revelatory matters.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So in that sense, obviously that's the Prophet teaching. Now, so if he's teaching something about the afterlife, let's say, this is his teaching, like the hadith that the Prophet said that The Prophet said there was a bee there. I was just not. I got away. So the Prophet said that the afterlife is ma la aynun ra'at. No eye has ever seen it. No, ear has ever heard it, and it has not been conceptualized in any mind. Now, this is the Prophet teaching you from his understanding about the deen, about these aspects.
So that totally makes sense. But what about narrations where it's talking about what could only be revelation, like before the day of judgment, the barefooted Bedouin will compete to build tall towers? I'm just giving it. I'm not even saying whether it's authentic or not authentic. That's not even the point of this question. The point is, wouldn't that could only be ilm al-ghayb being given as like actual ilm?
Yeah. So the Prophet would have, you see, now let's say, first of all, a lot of these things can also be inauthentic, because there is a lot of that as well, that usually eschatological issues to do with the end of times kind of literature, that apocalyptic literature usually is not very established. It's more kind of generated through hearsay, and then people.
I totally agree with you. I'm more interested in what did the classical scholars, how would they have interpreted Quran?
They would just say, they would just say that. They would just say, let's say if we were to say this is authentic, all of it.
Sure, yeah.
They would just say that, look, this is what the Prophet has in his knowledge. The knowledge is given to him, so he's telling you. How did he acquire that knowledge? They would just say, well, God gave it to him.
And then they decided what would go in Quran and what wouldn't. So there was a decision.
So the Quran is the Quran. It's not hadith. The Quran is obviously transmitted differently. Its language is different.
Okay.
It's just the Quran. Hadith is hadith. We're talking about the content, not the actual hadith. So let's say let's just say, for example, there is a hadith speaking about the afterlife. Now, somebody could say, well, this is not in the Quran, so how does the Prophet know this? Well, they would just say that the Prophet was, this was kind of revealed to him, but not as revelation in that sense, but like as in the knowledge was given to him of it. That's what they would mean.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So it's kind of like he came to know it.
I guess that distinction between like coming to know something that ends up being in the Quran and coming to know something that ends the Hadith, I've always been interested on how those decisions were made. Like, how did the companions know, like, hey, this revelation he's having, like, is this Quran or is this just like a regular?
No. But they never. You see, they were very clear what the Quran was, because it was a very. You see, the Quran, the word Quran is a recited scripture. It's a recital of something that they will. It's something to be read in a certain rhythmic
and they
way.
could tell that this is clearly,
and the Prophet would teach it to them as this is what the Quran was.
Well, look, that's that's a great answer. And one other question have nothing to do with any of that. If you have time.
Sure, Rami, go for it.
Yallah, okay. So look, I'm a student of science, you're a student of science, specifically neuroscience, and we both know the pitfalls of memory, right? So, so let's ignore even the claims of Islamic history on memory. But if you just look at the history of oral, communities where they had oral tradition, oral communities that were not, really using writing as much. If you look at any of their histories, their ability to recall information is clearly outstanding. Like, it's empirically just on another level. And because of that, they treat oral narration as the same weight of authenticity as anything else. So do you believe, again, as a student of science, I don't know what that sound is. Oh, it was a plane.
That's just my private jet.
Yeah. So do you believe that our ancestors, right, of antiquity, the ones that come from oral traditions, do you think that they had exponentially better memories than what we can observe today? Or is there any research to support that?
Right. It depends. So yes, there's truth to this, but it's not, I don't believe it's general, it's specific. So yes, in cultures, it even works now. Look, let's take right now the current age. Because of the ubiquitous and easy access to sat-navs, more and more people are not so familiar with directions anymore, because they so for example, they don't worry about having to remember the route, because they just put it in the sat-nav and just go there. So I could, for example, I could use a route repeatedly and still not 100% know it. Maybe I know it about 80% now, 90% now, but I'm on autopilot, just driving, listening to whatever. And maybe there's 1-2 roads in between. I'm not sure. Wait a minute. When I get to that point, which is it that I usually take? Is it that turn or that turn? I don't really pay attention. I just follow the sat nav.
No, that's me.
Whereas, let's say you go back 15 years, people were more attentive to the routes. Like, I remember when I began driving, which was probably going back about 15 years now. I remember at that time, I used to work as a teacher. So we had to go out of town, out of city, to go to different schools and stuff. And I remember I would, at that time, the sat-nav thing was new, and it was this huge box, right? So, and the TomTom. And I didn't actually have it. And I remember after a while getting hold of one. But before I got it, I had to figure out the route. And I had to kind of like, and I had to be so attentive. And this is how I used to memorize routes. I used to go and I used to think like, all right, when I get to this place, remember that there's got to be this turn here. There's got to be this, because obviously it's like an hour's drive and I'm going to go there. And now, like, I'll be useless at that.
Oh no, trust me. If you ask your parents for directions, I mean, they'll say go southbound. What do you mean southbound? Just tell me the address. Let me plug it in. You know. So I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So in that sense, wherever there's, you see, I think there's a push-pull factor. You see, where there's a need, we rise, and where there's no need, we get relaxed. So in those cultures that did have certain needs, like, I don't think, if I can just look at, like, let's say the Arab culture, yes, they did have Arabic poetry and they had epics, and because poetry was the currency of, it was cultural currency. So they used to use it to boast and to compete and to do stuff. So everybody wanted to be good at it because it was fashionable to do so. But let's take now, I look at my own kind of, let's say my grandparents or my great-grandparents, and we look at places like the Indian subcontinent. Now, they would have been farmers. Yeah. Now, they didn't have poetry that they resorted to. That wasn't the cultural capital, and they didn't have great epics to tell. And they were just rural folks. Yeah. So their memory would have more been to do with either routes, like if they have to go travel, or to do with certain, like it would have been of a utility to their lifestyle.
I get it. Like, yeah, neuroplasticity, really. I mean, it just comes down to that.
So if you had asked them to narrate, like, let's say you read a poem to them and said, go on, read it back to me. They probably haven't done that. So they probably won't be able to, or they might do terribly poor at it. Whereas if you did that to, let's say that you went even further back, or you went to a different part of the world where they've got poetry, and like, look, here you have these rap battles. And people that are into rapping and they spitting bars and all this kind of stuff, they're ever so good at it. You know, they come up with stuff on the spot and they do all of this, but that's because there's a culture for it. And they are a part of that culture.
That totally makes sense. Yeah.
But if you weren't a part of that culture, like, look, I'm not a part of that kind. If they just put me in and you do it, I'll be like, what the hell? How on earth do I do this? So I think we all have the capacity to work our memories to a certain level, but it's like a push-pull factor. Based on need, we will rise to it. And when we're relaxed, we'll just get chilled.
No, it makes sense.
Bother with it, yeah.
Well, I guess, look, that's both great answers.
And I think, an important point to mention there as well, I think in the West, it's what's really crucial to, I think we know this, but sometimes to realize it, is information is no longer the valued asset. like because information is readily available at the fingertips. So you see, I can just type anything. I can bring up much more information than the person teaching me. You could be a professor on something, but I've got access to, like, yes, you could teach something. You could teach me about physics, but I could just watch it and learn.
Yeah. Could you imagine what arguments were like back then? Like, just go 7 generations ago, and they're arguing about who's the president or who was the president, 100 years ago. They would just have to like go with someone's word, like, or go to the library or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Could you imagine?
So now information is not the valued asset. What it is your ability to analyze and assess and be able to filter through information. You see, this is why some people, whereas in parts of the Muslim world, they haven't really, there's still that disparity. So they're still in the age where information is, so if you memorize, so they will say, oh, he memorizes this many books by heart. But a person in this part of the world will think, well, but I don't need to memorize them because I've got them on my phone.
Exactly.
But have you ever analyzed and evaluated? And to them, it would be like, whoa, why would we need? We just need to memorize it. The sanctity of, kind of embodying the text. You see, it's still there's a gap between the worlds still. That in this part of the world, it's more about critical thinking and analysis, and it's not so much about having to harbor information. Whereas before it was, and in some parts of the Muslim world, it still is about harboring information and not about critical analysis. So
now we have too much information. Now there's so much information that really the natural selection is going to filter for people who are able to discern the information, find what's authentic, find what's not authentic, and not.
This is why the schooling system is failing, because they're still teaching information. It's stupid. I don't understand why they're just teaching information. They need to be teaching children how to filter through information, not because it's dumb. Like, they just continue. They're just doing the same thing they were doing with us
in the 20s
when we were kids. I'm older than you, but so I suppose even further back. And it's just that same thing, and it's useless because the kids, okay, they don't know it, but they can just bring it up.
They know exactly. Yeah. It's not a surprise for them.
Yeah. So Rami, shukran
Habibi,
for that.
yallah.
As always, it's a pleasure.
Ma'as-salam.
Take care of yourself. Ma'as-salama. Right, people, that is Rami. Right, all right. Interesting discussions there. We've got to start wrapping this up as well. Who have we got here? We've got Athar Khan. I've got 1-2 of the cameras, but they're just completely dark. I can't see anything on the other cameras, so I don't know whether that's because it's not working or what, but yep, Athar Khan. Oh, assalamu alaikum.
How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a long time. I spoke to you 4 or 5 months back, and now I'm talking to you again.
Yeah, I remember. I recall the name, and I recall you.
Yeah,
Allah, it was good. It's good speaking to you. How are you keeping?
Yeah, good. Coping up with my job and all the other stuff, and also listening to your lectures and stuff, and trying to cross compare with some other good scholars. So getting more into confusion and somewhat getting a clear path to.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah,
it's all part and parcel of this path we call life.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
So Mufti, I was trying to understand some of the concepts that you gave through Quran about miracles and on the birth of Mary, and also
birth of Mary.
Yeah, and
birth of Jesus.
Sorry, birth of Jesus, and also some other concepts on abrogation and 7 qira'ats.
I thought just for a moment, just remind us again, what country, where are you joining us from? Because somebody had asked. New Jersey, that's it. All right, awesome. Sorry, carry on.
I am Dr. Shadi's Masri neighbor. Your
Allah. Seriously, you have to convey my love to him.
Yeah.
Tell him, Mwah, Gio.
Yeah.
I hope he's well.
Yeah. So I had a lot of things to say over there too, but I just want to stick to a few questions, Mufti, just to have a better understanding on a few of the things. Mufti, you remember you told in one of your clips that that first the abrogation, that the Quran seemingly have some of the ayats that does portray that they are abrogated now. So is that my true understanding?
Sure. Does the Quran have any abrogation in it? Is this
Abrogated
what we're asking?
ayats that
What
are
you
no more
asking?
applicable.
Yeah, I would agree that there is abrogation. Yeah.
Okay, and I mean, so they are no more applicable, but they're just there just to read, and no applicability there.
Right. No, okay, so it depends what you're asking. Like, can still rulings be derived from them? They can, because it shows. So let's say a verse, it shows development, it shows a gradual approach, it shows that rulings are agile, it shows that social norms will change and the response must change. There's a lot to still take from it. But if you mean that one particular point, is the example to give you the other points.
Okay, so what I was trying to understand the concept of wasihat.
Wasiya. Okay.
Yeah. So as per my understanding with various other scholars, they say that it's not necessary now that you do wasiya, and that ayat is no more applicable. It's just abrogated. It's just there in Quran, and that's it.
I mean, I don't know if I agree with that verse being abrogated, but I know several ulama do say the wasiya was mandatory. I would say the wasiya is still there, as they say as well. The wasiya is still there, but except we all agree that the wasiya is optional. It's recommended to do a wasiya. To leave a will is optional, but it's recommended. So the difference is its ruling being changed. Let's say, is that an abrogation? But sorry, I interrupt you. But what's your question?
So I was just trying to understand the concept. Like, is that really a true concept, or it's just a lack of understanding there on various scholars? Because some say there are 5 verses that are abrogated. Some say it's 19. Some say it's 63, and it goes to 500.
Yeah. Suyuti as well has the whole a bunch of people have discussions on it.
And same for the qirats. Like, some say it's 7, some say it's 10, some say it's 50, I guess.
I mean, these are completely different discussions.
Yeah.
Qira has nothing to do with this. Yeah. So, right. So abrogation is, you see, there's 2 things. One is the concept. One is the what you call. So you've got. So what we're looking at is the tanqih al-manat, the manat, and then the tahqiq al-manat, which is the applicability. So where does it apply? So, for example, we may agree that analogy is a tool, and we may think that analogy is a fine tool. There's nothing wrong with analogy. Okay. Most the madhabs all agree on qiyas, analogy. They all disagree on where it applies. So some people say this qiyas applies here. People say, no, it doesn't apply here. It applies over there. And somebody says, no, it doesn't apply there, it applies here. So its applicability, people will disagree. So in abrogation, do I believe in the concept of abrogation? I believe the concept is important because I believe slavery was abrogated. I believe that kind of any kind of corporal punishments like that were abrogated. I believe so these things, for them to have been abrogated, there was the concept of abrogation was there in the Quran to show that. So it's important. for the whole picture, it ties in very well. That's how, if you're asking me about the concept, in the Quran, there are some examples, like when you're going to pray and alcohol, for example. Most people pretty much agree on things like this, like the alcohol example. And they might agree on one or two other examples, little examples, but they disagree on most of them, yes.
Okay. And Mufti, I need two references. One, you said...
character reference. Cha. Job interview.
No. Actually, I was in conversation with one of another Mufti, and I guess I told you previously. So he totally negated the concept when you that consumption of dogs or other animals, as per Maliki school of thought, it's allowed. What I heard from you, but he quoted me a reference from Muwatta, and he said that, see, this is Imam Malik saying that it's not allowed. So that's where I was a little confused. That if you have quoted that, you have quoted somewhere. I mean,
is he a Maliki?
No, he called himself Deobandi.
Okay.
Ahl Sunnat wal Jamaat or so.
No, but he's Hanafi. He's not Maliki.
Yeah, Hanafi.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I understand. So his research is very superficial in the Maliki madhab. I'm not saying that to knock him. I'm just saying I don't even know who he is, but I'm just saying that as a factual statement. Now, yes, the hadith is in the Muwatta of Imam Malik, and not every hadith in the Muwatta of Imam Malik does Imam Malik accept. He actually put certain hadith there to show that it's problematic. That said, it is true, not all Malikis accept that ruling. Not all Malikis accept that. So people like Ibn Abdul Barr tries to argue that these animals are haram, but the majority and the mashhur of the madhab, I'm not really somebody that's into mashhurs, but those, because it's part of institutionalization. But that said, so Mukhtasar Khalil, all the fatwa books, the main fatwa books of the Maliki method, they very clearly say that all animals are, the ruling that I taught, that none of those things are haram, they're makruh. Including many of the tafasir, like Ibn Arabi, he writes it. All of these people write. It's a very well-known thing within the Maliki method. It's not a fringe or a minority opinion. It's the majority opinion of the Maliki madhab. So it's the majority. So only the minority disagree with it.
Yeah, Mufti, I sent your clip to him, and he said I need a reference. So
yeah. Mukhtasar Khalil.
Mukhtasar Khalil.
You see this is the problem, that if a person doesn't know how to find basic references, they are not, basically they're punching above their weight. Like, this is not for them. So for example, imagine I'll ask you about cryptocurrency, and you say, yeah. So you say, I want to do it. So I say, okay, so what's wait a minute, what's an exchange? How does that, I don't even know what these things are. Then obviously I need to learn, or I need to ask somebody else to do it, or it's not really, I'm not in that field. This is basically a bit slightly above my, it doesn't mean I can't get there, but there's a huge gap in my capacity. So anybody that's learned within Islam should be able to find these references with ease. So it's very easy. Like, these are not like, so for example, let me tell you, sometimes I quote very difficult masail, rare, kind of like the issues that few people have discussed. Nobody's discussed them. When I say nobody generally, a few people have discussed them. I, for some reason, end up finding these things. Now, I can understand people are struggling to get hold of it, because they don't have that talent to be able to dig that deep, because this requires some really deep level of, you need to know how to, because I realized, it surprised me, but I realized that a lot of people ain't actually good at even Google searches, like effective searches. I mean, anybody can do a search, but they're not actually good at effectively researching online. I used to think everybody could do it until I remember being with a couple of people and realizing, what on earth are they doing? Why haven't they found this yet? And I realized it's actually people don't know how to search keywords. Like what do I like? How do I get to something? So
I agree.
So anyway, the point is, now you bring it back to the Islamic thing. So there's some discussions that are very like gems, rare stuff. That kind of stuff, asking for a reference or asking for guidance. Like, can you guide me? Like, give me some names so I can find that area and then narrow myself in. That makes sense. But something like this, dietary laws within Islam, if you can't find dietary laws within Islam according to the Maliki Madhab, you don't know. I mean, you could just type that in English and it would come up. Then you are punching way above your weight. Like, you're in the wrong place. You're totally in the wrong lane. This is so easy. But if you are asking for books, every single Maliki fit book, you just go to the section of At'ima or Dhaba'i. You go to that section. You go to the section on food. It will tell you very clearly that what is haram, what isn't. Like Mukhtasar Khalil is a fatwa book within the Maliki Madhab. It's a very basic, very summarized text, but it's got a bunch of commentaries on it. So he says it in there as well, that this is the opinion that it's not haram. So, yeah.
And even Imam Malik did said that we can reject the Sahih Hadith as well, and this is within Muwatta, right?
So he doesn't just say that, he does better than that. He himself rejects a bunch of hadith within his own Muwatta.
Okay.
So Imam Malik will, in the Muwatta, he brings several hadith, but he says after them, we don't act according to this hadith. That said, to be in all fairness, after this hadith that he brings of Abu Hurairah about the predatory animals are forbidden, he doesn't speak, he doesn't say anything. So in all fairness, after that one, he doesn't say, oh, we don't act according to this. He doesn't say we do, he doesn't say anything, but he brings the hadith. Now, this is why Ibn Abdul Barr tried to argue that point that this Maulana was doing, but Ibn Abdul Barr himself believed these things to be haram. So he tried to say, this is what I think Imam Malik was doing when he did that. But Ibn Abdul Barr is in a minority in the Maliki Madhab for saying that. And I'm not against minorities. I'm just telling you, if a person wants to be in a minority, it's up to them. But I'm just saying, this is, the other people say Imam Malik brought this hadith because it's got an illah in it. And you have to be able to detect the illah. And the illah was the hadith is transmitted purely by Basriyin. And how can it be that nobody from Medina knows about dietary food? How can it be that the Prophet lived in Medina and nobody in Medina knew that predatory animals are haram?
And Mufti, that clearly matches with the Quranic ayats too. I mean,
like the ayah I read today.
Yeah.
The ayah I read today, it says, tell them I don't find anything haram for anyone who wants to eat except pig.
Exactly. Yep.
That's a verse of the Quran.
Yeah.
This is what, and Abu Bakr ibn Arabi in his Ahkam, there's another reference in his Ahkam, just check up that verse. He says that the school of Medina is built on this verse when it comes to dietary food.
Yeah, but when you tell a normal person or an average person, they're shocked and they tend not to believe on it.
Oh yes, I get that. I get that because it's a culture shock.
Yeah.
Okay, because people have a picture that, first of all, people have an assumption of a homogenized Islam. So they think Islam everywhere is always the same, symmetrical, but it isn't. But they think that, and that's, I mean, it's a nice, simple, beautiful kind of thought, but it's not true. I feel that in its diversity, it's even more beautiful. But they, at a simpler level, people don't like they see disagreements as conflict. Disagreements are not necessarily conflicts. They are diversity. But people, you see, young people think binary. So they think black and white. So children, you have to teach them binary, black and white, black and white, black and white. But as the human mind and brain kind of becomes more sophisticated, we can handle gray areas, we can handle color. But some people, they don't advance that much in their kind of mental stuff. Like they're not dumb, but they're not that analytical either. So they're kind of still relatively simple minded. So, and that's okay to get by. I'm not trying to say everybody needs to be super intelligent, but they think so. To them, they have fundamental concepts like religion is simple, so Allah is simple, which is right as well. They're right in that sense. There's nothing, Islam is simple as well. But you see, what they forget is simplicity is the highest form of sophistication. You see, they forget that, because it's not that they forget, they don't realize that. You know, in simplicity, in the rose petal, in the rose and the way its petals are organized in nature, there is immense mathematical sophistication. Immense. If you look at the golden mean, how it manifests itself in nature, in the sunflower plant and in other things, there's immense sophistication and mathematical sophistication. But the average person doesn't, like, they don't realize that, but they just see the niceness of the flower and they think, oh, the flower looks nice. True. But there's great kind of patterns that have been placed there for it to make it look nice. You understand? Obviously, it's in nature. Allah has placed them. True. So these people, they say, you know, Islam is simple. It is simple, but for it to be simple, it has to be sophisticated.
True, true. One last question, Mufti. Very short question.
You oh my God, we've been
on the concept of sorry.
No, sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So you believe on the concept of, like, there are no miracles. If I'm not wrong here, right? Because
you are wrong.
Okay. Okay.
I know I believe in miracles. We all believe in miracles. Like the miracle of life is a miracle that we can't still explain.
Whatever has
miracle
been...
of consciousness is something we can't explain. We all believe in miracles.
No, I was talking in a reference, like, anything that has been created, the set rules of God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now they will not change. And if anything come across that we don't see,
you see, look, there are, right. This is, to me, you see, a bit of a useless discussion, because the reason being, there is no real disagreement. Everybody accepts the stories as they are told in the Quran. Nobody disagrees with these things. Everybody agrees that these are very short glimpses into a story and incident, that there is no overall telling of a story. Allah doesn't tell you details of what happened with Musa alayhi salam. It's just one verse here, one verse there, one verse there. It's what they call in literature the term ellipsis, okay, or elliptical kind of sequence where things are missing. So let's say in English I say this happened ... The ... means something's missing, and then you figure that out. Like you know, he came home ... The house erupted. You understand? Does that mean something happened? Yeah, because ... So this is everywhere in the Quran, this kind of ... It's part of the Arabic language, ellipsis. So now the question is, nobody's disagreeing on any of these stories. Nobody's disagreeing on these incidents. The question is that, let's say something happened that was spectacular. Did Allah adopt a means for it to happen? Or was there no means in the galaxy and it just happened? To some people, they say, look, no means existed in the entire universe and it just happened. TK, you know, that helps them.
Yeah,
it's
Mufti,
a wonderful way of them being kind of like their iman is kind of strengthened. To other people, they would say, look, Allah didn't mention it, but of course there's always means to something. You know, like I say, the rain fell. Obviously, for the rain to have fallen, the clouds had to have picked the water up from somewhere.
Yeah.
They picked it up from a reservoir and they brought it. And the winds had to have blown, and so things had to have happened. But every time you say, "Oh, it rained," you don't need to say, "Oh, by the way, a cloud got formed by this happening, by this happening." So this discussion on were there any means adopted for the realization of certain events is really, to me, a fruitless discussion, because if it helps you to think, look, there were no means, then that's wonderful. I have no objection. If to other people they think, well, no, there would always be means, fine, that's wonderful as well. It doesn't diminish from the book of Allah.
Yeah, Mufti, based on my understanding, I think it helps you to understand a lot of concepts. I mean, once the means are established, then those means are not changed. They will stay the same. Allah Ta'ala ne jo bhi alme khalq mein rakh diya, that will stay the same, right? Because there are a lot of people who put those things not in line with that. I see. For example, जब हजरत इब्राहिम को आग में डाला गया था और वो सारी स्टोरीज जो है, so that actually
you see, but this is the point. You see, कि बात वही है. You see, it's not a problem. Whatever a person wants to take, they can take it. If it helps this person in this way, that Allah never says in the Quran once Ibrahim alayhi salam ko aag mein dala gaya. Ek dafa bhi nahi kaha Allah ne. Magar the ellipsis, you guessed this. There was a gap, wasn't there? That they prepared the fire for Ibrahim, ... Allah saved Ibrahim from the fire. You then said in your mind, okay, I want a picture that he was thrown in. Now, Allah never says that in the Quran, but he leaves it for you. If you want to understand that and it helps you, take it. If somebody else thinks, no, Allah saved him from being fallen in, then take it. Uske liye bhi take it. Like, it helps. However the Quran helps you in its understanding is wonderful. You don't need to, the Quran, you see, the arguments, these people who disagree are not disagreeing on what the Quran says. They are disagreeing on what it doesn't say, but what they are filling in the blanks. So the Quran never, and this is to me the miracle of the Quran. Wallahi, I find this so amazing that the Quran doesn't actually say these things. Because you see, that is part of the amazing nature of the Quran and the miraculous nature, that otherwise it would have had, certain people would have struggled with it. But the Quran was for everyone. It was for these people who are going to say, yeah, I'm going to fill this blank in with this story. And it was for other people that are going to say, no, but that's not how the world works. And it's fine for them. You see, Allah, it's what people are fighting over is the gaps that they are filling in. They're not fighting over the actual. Allah never, you mentioned virgin birth. Allah never says once in the Quran that Jesus was born from virgin birth. But that's the ... It says that, Mary says that, I haven't had any kind of intercourse yet. Angel says, this is the will of God, ... Jesus is born. Now, it leaves it. Some people would say, of course, this is what the Christians have told us. This is the virgin birth. And alhamdulillah, if it helps their iman, it's wonderful. Other people would think, no, in the ... it meant, obviously, she had a husband and they had a child. So it worked. But look, the miracle of the Quran is it left that gap. It could have just filled it in, but it didn't. And people are only arguing over the gap. They're not arguing over the verse. So,
and the real essence message behind.
Because the real message was not, you see, when Allah is telling a story in the Quran, the Qisasun Nabiyyin, these stories are for you to get a moral from them, to benefit, to get inspiration. They're not to get caught up in the detail. In fact, what's funny is the story, I say funny, what's ironically funny here is the story in the Quran that shows that is when Allah is condemning it. That the Israelites get caught up in the detail of the cow. Acha, what color is the cow? Acha, how old is the cow? Allah says that, what's wrong with these people? What's wrong with them? Who's told them to go into this kind of detail? If they want to do it personally, but making the religion about the detail. So you see, when the story is being told about Moses, he did this, he saved the Israelites. This is a story of the is testament to the power of human will, to resistance, to fighting for liberation, to believing in God against all the odds, even against an empire, and still coming through. This is about that. Now people start saying, Achayar, what was the staff made out of? What kind of wood was it made out of? What was the Achar? How did he throw was it? But this was never the purpose behind this, Allah telling you the story. It was never.
But Mufti, do you know, in Pakistan and most of the subcontinent areas, if you don't believe on these two concepts, they say you are out of the religion. एक तो has birth और साथ में इसके अलावा if you don't believe on जो वापस आएंगे वो मूसा अलैहिस्सलाम और हज़रत अलैहिस्सलाम और इसके अलावा there is another one.
Look.
Yeah. And that actually हम लोग तो शुरू से ये सुनते आ रहे थे.
नहीं ये तो सही है, but look, the point is this. लोग तो कुछ भी हो उसके लिए निकाल देंगे. You know, people will chuck you out of the deen for anything. But this is why, you know, I've said before, this isn't their dad's deen. This is nobody's Islam to chuck somebody out of. This, you know, I said it actually saddened me. Wallahi, saddened me to read people were making dua. Like not that I wasn't saddened because of it was me, but I was saddened that wow, yeah, like how log kitne gir gaye, you know, like they make dua that this person becomes an atheist. Where is the message of our prophet? Like if just one person can embrace this wonderful message, that, you know, just anything, like the person saying, I'm not going to pray, I'm only going to pray once, I ain't going to do. The prophet saying, ahlan wa sahlan. The person saying, look, prophet saying, marhaban, welcome. The person insulting the prophet, and the prophet still saying, look, hold back, everyone, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You know, if he wants to, it's up to him. He wants to insult me, let him insult me. I'm just going to say something nice to him. I'm going to respond with kindness. You know, bashiru wala tunaffiru. Don't scare people away. Invite them. Yassiru, make things easy. Wala tuassiru. We've got this lambisi list here from all the way from there to here. If you disagree on one of these points, we're going to be the first to chuck you out of Islam.
You're out.
You think, look, first of all, who gave anyone the license? This is Allah's faith. This is God. This is people connecting to God. Nobody owns it. Nobody has a monopoly over the Quran or the Prophet or Islam. You know, why are we? And this is the disappointing thing. Why do we? Oh, we just lost. Why are we so wanting to chase people away from this thing? It really, because can you just imagine, seriously, for a moment, just think how hurtful this is. That Arthur Khan is back. Sorry, we lost you.
Yeah.
Just think how hurtful this is to the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who spent his entire life, that part of the life, for this message that it would reach us. And we are so busy just trying to chuck people who have it out.
True.
You know, chuck him out. The Prophet endured so much just so one more person will accept this message.
Yeah.
And the people were being sometimes arrogant with the Prophet. They were being hard with him. They were being difficult with him. The Prophet needed help. Bani Thaqif said that tribe, they had money, they had might. And they said, we'll embrace Islam, but we're not going to give you a penny. We're not going to give you a single soldier. What do you say? The Prophet said, ahlan wa sahlan to Islam.
Very true.
He said, welcome. He said, like, this ain't the Prophet's deen. This is the deen of Islam. The Prophet is the one inviting people. Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah. جادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. You want to engage in debate, do it in a way that is so good. بأحسن. It is with the, and this is why, you know, when I said earlier on, people like Mike Tyson say, look, religion just has too much conflict in it. Just could be there. You know, you've heard of the crab mentality. The crab mentality, right? So you get the crabs and you put them in a bucket. And you see, if it's just one crab, it can climb its way out. But you put a bunch of them in there, and when one crab climbs up, the others pull him down. And what happens is, if he keeps trying, they actually break his legs. And on some occasions, they'll actually kill him. And this crab mentality is, how has this come in an ummah whose prophet is rahmatan lil alamin? It's come as a mercy for the world. So it's saddened, but people will do it. To me, my message would be, ignore people who don't spread love. If you're not about spreading love, then TK, you know, it's their thing. My advice would be to just be on your path, be focused.
Yeah.
You see, because if the deen hasn't fixed your ego of control, of power, of hate, then the deen hasn't done anything for you. You know, your salah and your saum and your hajj hasn't done anything. If you have such a hateful ego that, you know, you are just, him. You know, I watched this clip of, you know, of these dawah videos saying you will die upon kufr. Wow. The way you guys are going, you will all die upon kufr. So astaghfirullah. You know, these are hurtful. Because this deen is something that's supposed to improve your life, not something that's supposed to make someone so hateful and, you know, toxic and shout at people and do all of this stuff. And if it is doing that, then, you know, you haven't found Allah. That's the truth. It'll be nafs. You've only found the nafs.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Yeah.
But
yeah, shukran, Athar.
Thank you,
I appreciate it, yaar.
Maza hai apse baat karke. Always.
Khush rahe, yaar. Khush. Right, guys. Guys, we've gone on for so long. I do appreciate. There's quite a few super chat. Shukran for the super chat. Mufti, the deen is nothing but a tool of power. People who think the Prophet only came to establish Khilafah. Yeah. You know, it's like people playing with their toys. That's what it is. But khair. Guys, right, let's wrap this up. Shukran. It's been awesome. I dearly appreciate you guys kind of spending all this time. Kuch jazbati ho gaya, yaar. I got a bit emotional on you know, this kind of stuff. It gets to me sometimes. I think maybe it's old age. I don't know, but it's hurtful to see all this and you know, I get a bit emotional sometimes. Ho jata hai. Guys, take very good care of yourselves. Just checking if you're not already. Mariam, shukran, much appreciated. If you've not already liked and subscribed, then make sure you get over there and do that. I've got a few of the videos up there already. The Mind Trap, it's really interesting. The recent one, it's on Ihsan, it's on Ibn Arabi and the whole legacy. I think that's definitely worth checking out. I did do a book club last month's book club. So if you want to watch that video, it's on there. We discussed Money by Yuval Harari. This month's book is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, which will be very interesting. Guys, if you want to reach out with questions, Instagram is usually pretty good. If you want more than that, then chalo, as always, Patreon. Patreon, wahan ja maro. You can go to Patreon, show your love. I do have sessions as well. We have a whole kind of Discord server. We have group sessions. In fact, we just had a group session last week. I also have one-to-ones on there, so you can check that out. That's on Patreon. Other than that, guys, take very good care of yourselves. Someone said it's been emotional. It has, yeah, it's been emotional. I don't like getting too emotional, man. Not online anyway. So people, take very good care of yourselves. As always, que Dios los bendiga. All right, may Allah bless you all. Wassalamullahi alaikum wa khuda hafiz.